The story begins with a man standing atop a mountain of corpses. He asked Luo Wei why this had been done to him, remembering they were like brothers who had fought together through life and death. Luo Wei reminded him of the beginning of the calamity. Monsters emerged from strange spatial rifts, sowing chaos everywhere. Over time, these rifts were named dungeons, and those who came into contact with them gained mysterious powers known as classes. For this reason, the class core was formed to conquer the dungeons, and they advanced triumphantly. Luo Wei began to stare intently at the protagonist, revealing that this was precisely why he had to be eliminated. The man had become uncontrollable. Powerful class users could easily disrupt the Empire's order, and he, having surpassed even the Triple S rank, was the most dangerous enemy of all. Supreme power had to remain in the hands of the royal family, as only then could the Empire remain stable. With eyes gleaming with rage, the protagonist questioned if this was an excuse to slaughter his family and comrades. With malice in his eyes, Luo Wei clarified that he was doing this for the stability of the Empire. Just before the protagonist could take another breath, Luo Wei triggered a powerful explosion, revealing that he had tampered with his armor long ago. The explosion would also inject a compound poison into his wounds. Luo Wei knew that after an SSS rank battle, the protagonist would not have the strength to resist. To ensure this, Luo Wei had prepared an entire army, considering it his final show of respect. Just before dying, the protagonist began to recall memories of the moments spent with Luo Wei. At that moment, his hidden skill, Mirror World, met its activation conditions. Mirror World, an SSS rank hidden skill, was the ultimate ability that reverted everything. He lost his life, and his soul sank into a lake. Decades later, a pair of boys were torturing another boy, tying him to a tree and submerging his body in the lake. One of them punched him in the stomach and told his friend to dunk him again. As they tortured him, they couldn't help but mock him, deciding to keep him underwater longer to teach him a lesson if he kept pretending. His expression seemed hilarious to them, and they planned to pull him out, only to beat him a few more times. The boy could no longer hold his breath. He didn't know why he always had to be the one suffering. At that moment, the protagonist's soul began to awaken. A boy with glasses approached the bullies and told them to stop, as the other boy was going to die. One of the bullies turned around and, with an arrogant gaze, retorted that if he was about to die, he should just heal himself, as that's what a shanter was for, though he knew it wouldn't be much use. He then mentioned that the boy with glasses was a hypocrite, as he had been the one to lead them all to find him. Therefore, if the boy died, it would be his fault. The boy with glasses panicked, explaining that he only did it because they had forced him. This angered the bully, who prepared to hit him, but then something strange happened, and a powerful light began to emerge from the lake. The bullies started to flee the scene, screaming in terror about the appearance of a dungeon and the need to escape, as a new dungeon was beyond their capabilities. The attention of the boy with glasses was fixed on the boy they were torturing. Seeing that he was still submerged in the water, he started running toward the rope, knowing he had to save him. At that moment, the lake dried up completely, and monsters began to appear. The boy with glasses started to untie the knots, and while he was distracted, one of the monsters lunged at him. But just then, the boy who was tied up grabbed him by the clothes and pulled him out of the attack's path. Then he extended his hand and used a skill called Glacial Impact. The system informed him that he had used Basic Heal on Minor Demon A, but the action had failed because the target's HP was already full. The boy with glasses panicked, not understanding why he was healing the monster. When the monster tried to attack again, he summoned a shield, blocking the attack just in the nick of time. When the protagonist opened the information window, he saw that his name was Yun Che, and he had the Chanter class. He realized he had used a healing spell, and that this was not his original body. Normally, when someone touched a dungeon, they would bind to the system and obtain a random starting class, which should be unchangeable. After that, they would grow and become stronger through the dungeon, gaining skills tied to their class. However, he had been a warrior who had reached the pinnacle. Back then, he had used a skill called Mirror World. After that, he was trapped in the Mirror World until he heard the dying cry of that boy. He finally realized that he had been revived in that boy's body. This was not exactly a happy thought, but he still thanked the boy for giving him a chance at revenge. The boy with glasses informed Yunche that the monsters were surrounding them and asked for immediate help, as he could only handle 3 at most. The protagonist knew his body was too weak. Even these small enemies were beyond his capabilities. At their speed, he couldn't even run. Opening his skill window, he realized they were all useless. Basic Heal restored 1 to 4 HP to a target, and Entangling Vines summoned vines to immobilize a single enemy with a low success rate. Chanter was too specialized. Its strengths were in support, but it was outclassed in every role. It was no wonder this class was always looked down upon. For now, with his old combat instincts, he could resist briefly. Yunche dodged the monster's attack, knowing he needed a quick way out, as he would die if his stamina ran out. Now, the hidden skill, Mirror World, was his only hope. The protagonist dodged an attack without knowing how the skill worked and then touched the monster, but the skill failed as the conditions were not met. He didn't know if his level was too low or if it needed a real mirror. When he used the skill on the monster again, it failed once more due to his level being insufficient. Noticing this, he concluded that Mirror World needed a reflective surface to activate. The level issue couldn't be solved yet, so he decided to try another target. When the protagonist used the skill on the monster's weapon, it failed again due to his insufficient level. He tried the skill on a tattered loincloth, but it also failed for the same reason. The boy with glasses panicked and told him to stop wasting time with his useless skills, as he couldn't hold on much longer. A burst of energy descended from the sky, and a monster called a malformed overlord, level 10, appeared. The boy with glasses knew they were dead. An elite monster like this required at least level 10 to be defeated. Several more bursts of energy began to descend from the sky, and his eyes widened in fear, causing him to fall to the ground. Hundreds of fierce monsters appeared before them. While the protagonist was busy using his skill, the monsters began to charge toward them. Yunche couldn't even use his skill on rocks, wondering if the level gap was too large. Then, the protagonist decided to use his skill on Qiaoji's makeshift barrier, but the system informed him that it had failed, as the skills of others could not be reversed. Upon realizing he couldn't reverse others' skills, a smile spread across his face, as this meant he could reverse his own. Once the protagonist used the skill on his own ability, it revealed that Mirror World had successfully reversed his Entangling Vine skill. Yunche used Chaotic Thorns, causing thousands of thorns to erupt from the ground. When one of the monsters tried to attack, another monster surrounded by a red aura struck it, saving Qiaoji. He was somewhat confused, not knowing what was happening, but the protagonist realized that the skill's effect had been completely inverted. Instead of immobilize, it now inflicted confusion. The Entangling Vines skill normally entangled a single enemy with a low chance of immobilizing it. However, its reversed upgrade, Chaotic Thorns, now caused thorns to lash out at a target with a low chance of inflicting confusion. The monsters began to attack each other. This was due to the confusion status effect, which caused afflicted units to attack random targets. The protagonist couldn't help but smile, as he realized that a useless skill had become powerful after being reversed. This made him contemplate what would happen if he reversed the rest of his skills. Mirror World truly lived up to its reputation as an SSS rank hidden skill. It not only reversed the effects of skills, but also applied an overall enhancement. If he had used the non-reverted version of this skill, the success rate would be low. The duration of the restraint would only last a second at most, not reaching its current potency. Our boy grabbed a sword that was stuck in the ground and couldn't help but wonder what would happen if he reversed his remaining skills. His attention was drawn to the skill Empowered Strike. It cost 20 mana points, had a duration of 30 seconds, and granted a 5% attack boost to one unit, with the effect ending when the unit consumed mana points. When Yunche reverted this skill, it transformed into Trick Blade. It cost 40 mana points, lasted 60 seconds, and granted a 10% attack boost for each consumption of mana points. He activated Trick Blade, and his sword began to emanate a powerful aura. He realized that each skill use granted a 10% boost in attack power. Trick Blade was active, with 60 seconds remaining on its duration. Just by activating this, any skill usage would trigger attack power increases. The potential was incredible. Yunche leveled up, now reaching level 6. He noticed that many monsters had died from their own infighting, and realized that these monsters gave a decent amount of experience upon death. When one of the monsters tried a surprise attack, our boy reacted in time and blocked the attack. Yunche's attention was drawn to his own HP bar, which had 480 HP and 120 mana points. He realized that leveling up fully restored his mana points. While the monsters remained chaotic, he decided to test this Trick Blade. Yunche activated Chaotic Thorns, consuming mana points. This triggered the effect of Trick Blade, causing a rapid decrease in his mana points, while his attack repeatedly increased by a 10% boost with each consumption. He now had 12 mana points, but his Trick Blade had resulted in a 120% attack increase, with 44 seconds remaining on its duration. His eyes began to gleam, and his attention fixed on one of the monsters charging towards him. He realized that this skill broke all conventions by allowing him to reach 2.2 times his attack power so easily. When the monster attacked, our boy deflected the blow, moved behind it, and dealt a deep gash on its back and then its stomach. Chaoji was in shock. He couldn't believe this was Yun Che, observing his movements. He wondered how a level 5 chanter could have such capability, and since when did chanters possess such skills? Our boy continued to fight the monsters, killing them one by one. With his level 6 stats, 120 mana points, and 1 mana point regeneration per second, he realized he could theoretically reach 2.3 times his attack power. In an instant, he defeated a level 11 monster and couldn't help but smile. He realized his current strength could barely handle these level 11 elites. At that moment, a hand emerged from the ground. Yun Che's attention was fixed on it as a level 21 monster called Battle Fiend Chimera emerged from the ground and began to roar. It turned and massacred the smaller monsters in a single move. Chaoji's eyes filled with fear, while on the other hand, our boy felt somewhat surprised to see a hidden level 21 boss in this dungeon. The boss began to charge toward our boy. When he tried to use Chaotic Thorns, the skill failed as the monster was immune to chaos. Just before the monster could attack, Chaoji stepped in front and summoned his shield. Yuncha felt somewhat surprised, and not long after, he began to see someone familiar. A blonde-haired boy called him an idiot, telling him he had asked him not to charge forward. Our boy's eyes widened. The boss attacked with force, shattering the shield Chaoji had summoned and sending his body crashing hard against the ground. Yuncha rushed towards him. He extended his hand and began to use his skills. He activated Basic Heal on Chaoji, which restored 1 HP. This consumed mana points, leaving him with 54 points. Trick Blade activated, granting him a 10% damage boost. Immediately after, Basic Heal activated again on Chaoji, this time with a critical hit that restored 5 HP. Our boy's mana points reached 1. He considered that a chanter's healing skills were truly pathetic and asked Chaoji if he had any health potions. He said he had an emergency one, and our boy told him to drink it. His Trick Blade now had 85 seconds of duration left. The boss started killing the other monsters. Yunche knew he was not yet a match for this boss, but the mobs were almost all dead. He had a plan in mind. Showing his blade, he asked Chaoji to hold on for a minute, as he was going to finish off the monsters, leaving him somewhat surprised. Our boy moved like a thunderclap, slicing the monsters to pieces. The duration of his trick blade had reached 0. Yuncha leveled up, restoring his HP and mana points to 80-120. He activated Trick Blade. By using Chaotic Thorns repeatedly, each consumption of mana points triggered the effect of Trick Blade, increasing its attack by +10% with each activation. He knew he needed at least a 400% attack boost to defeat the boss. He began to slaughter more monsters, leveling up again. This restored his mana points to 110. He activated Chaotic Thorns, which granted him a 10% attack damage boost and reduced his mana points to 101. He repeated the activation of Chaotic Thorns, gaining another 10% attack boost as his mana points dropped to 92. He realized he had to cast Chaotic Thorns 40 times in 50 seconds, which meant he needed to reach level 10. Chaoji was in shock, unable to believe what his eyes were seeing. Yunche leveled up several times. The boss prepared to attack, but our boy began to glow. He was now level 12. His Trick Blade had a 510% boost and a duration of 95 seconds, which was more than enough to face this boss. Yuncha moved like lightning, cutting off its arm, then appeared behind it and launched a chain of slashes, causing the monster terrible pain. Just before it had time to react, our boy sliced its body to pieces. In the blink of an eye, he had defeated a level 21 boss that had over 10,000 HP. After killing this boss, our boy gained 3 levels, now being level 15. Chaoji was in shock and didn't know if he was dreaming, wondering if a level 5 chanter had just solo cleared an entirely new dungeon. Now that the dungeon lord had been defeated, the dungeon was cleared. He approached and asked Yunche if it was really him. The monsters dropped items, and the system prompted our boy to collect them. He wanted to know how our boy had suddenly become so strong. Our boy began to recall his past, and upon seeing Chaoji's face, he asked what his relationship was with Chao Ben. Chaoji was in shock, as he didn't know how Yunche knew his great-grandfather's nickname. Yunche was somewhat surprised to learn that he was actually the great-grandson of Chao Ben. He began to remember Chao Ben, and his eyes filled with sadness as all the people he knew had been killed by Luo Wei. Just before he could ask more about Chao Ben, Chaoji averted his gaze and mentioned that it wasn't necessary to talk about him at that moment. If Yunche didn't want to answer his question, he didn't have to say anything. There was no need to humiliate him like that. Yunche was a bit confused as he didn't know what was happening. Chaoji mentioned that, although he didn't know why, Yunche had been hiding his true strength all this time. He advised that they should return to school. Since the next day, the school would organize a visit to the Modern History Memorial Hall, and skipping classes would get them noticed. Yunche couldn't help but clench his fist tightly and feel furious. He decided to listen to him, but deep down, he knew he couldn't reveal his identity yet. If Chaoji investigated too much, he could become suspicious. Yunche thought about the Modern History Memorial Hall. It should have records of what happened after he died. The next day, they boarded the subway on their way to school. The students were very excited. Times had changed a lot. After being dead for so many years, the world had mutated enormously. He couldn't believe they now used products from the dungeons to power carriages. Many things had appeared that he had never seen before. However, he had seen some of them in dungeons in the past. He opened his system inventory. He wondered if only items dropped by monsters could be taken out of a dungeon. He equipped the Chimera Bone Ring. It was a level 14 ring, formed from the rib of the Dungeon Lord of Flesh and Bone, the Battlefield Chimera. It allowed the wearer to attach a chimera limb to their body. He took the robust physique skill book from his inventory. It was of excellent quality, a passive skill type, and its learnable class was universal. He noticed that equipment like this and skill books could be taken out through the inventory. They could also be bought and sold outside of dungeons. He had the Resilient Physique skill active. It was a passive, permanent skill that reduced incoming physical damage. Things that couldn't be stored in the inventory after defeating the Lord should have disappeared along with the dungeon. His eyes began to gleam with confusion. He didn't know what had happened after his death. Not long after, he arrived at the Modern History Memorial Hall, and the first thing he saw was the statue of Luo Wei, the supreme ruler of the kingdom, the emperor who had ended the dungeon disasters. The teacher began to guide the students through the Modern History Memorial Hall. He explained that many students knew that this very place, more than 50 years ago, had been the battlefield of that famous rebellion. The teacher explained that back then, they were deeply afflicted by the dungeons. He added that, especially after the most terrifying Triple S rank dungeon appeared, everyone lived in fear. King Luo Wei personally led the professional army on an expedition. Despite suffering heavy casualties, he finally conquered this terrifying dungeon. But just at that moment, he encountered a long-planned rebellion. Its mastermind, as everyone knew, was Yunche. Yunche was the same man deeply trusted by the king, but who ultimately became an ungrateful traitor. Yunche couldn't help but feel furious seeing that this was what history had become. They were the ones who cleared the Triple S rank dungeon and the ones who were ambushed. The teacher clenched his fist, mentioning that they couldn't imagine the pain of being betrayed under such circumstances. But their king overcame this sorrow and fought with blood and courage. Finally, with the help of the hero Ding Kun, he successfully suppressed the rebellion. Yunche's eyes filled with curiosity upon hearing the name Ding Kun. He wondered if such a person existed. The bullies who had been torturing Yunche in the lake appeared and felt somewhat confused to notice that they were still alive. They wondered how this was possible since he and Qiaoji had been dragged into the newly formed dungeon. One of the bullies mentioned that the dungeon had been cleared. He thought that for a new dungeon to be cleared so quickly, a master must have been nearby. According to him, they were incredibly lucky to have found that master. Our boy's attention fixed on them, realizing that they were the bastards who had been torturing the owner of his body. Everyone began to approach Ding Shu to find out what he was talking about, reacting with total disbelief. They wondered if he had really encountered a new dungeon and, more shockingly, if he had survived a disaster within it. Ding Shu put his arm around Qiaoji's shoulder and mentioned that he was quite lucky to have made it out alive. He began to whisper, revealing that they had almost dragged them into that dungeon that day and demanded to know how they planned to settle this debt. Qiaoji panicked, making it clear that it was Ding Shu's fault. He threatened to report him, accusing him of almost causing his and Yunche's deaths. Ding Shu grabbed Qiaoji by the head, questioning what was going through his mind and realizing that he didn't seem to have any idea of the situation at all. Ding Shu sked Qiaoji to look at the statue in front of them and observe his ancestor being trampled upon by the hero. He revealed that he was the traitor, Qiao En, and Qiaoji was his descendant. Finally, he asked if he really thought anyone would take his side. Ding Shu began to shout, saying that Qiaoji could insult him, but he could not insult his ancestor, leaving poor Qiaoji in shock. Everyone started to gather around, knowing that Ding Shu's grandfather was the hero Ding Kun. Upon hearing this, our boy's eyes began to gleam with rage. The students realized that the person next to them was Qiaoji, the descendant of Qiao En. To them, the descendant of a traitor insulting a hero was a sign of a world turned upside down. They recalled that his ancestor, Qiao En, had slaughtered many people, and if the hero hadn't intervened, who knows how many more would have died. Ding Shu began to feign, making it clear that he didn't care what he said about him behind his back, but he couldn't allow him to insult his ancestor to his face. The teacher approached Qiaoji, placed a hand on his shoulder, and asked him to apologize. He told him that, as his teacher, he had always been fair and reminded him that the hero had forgiven his family in the past. He concluded that, even if he didn't feel gratitude for this, he had no right to defame him. After saying this, the teacher left. Ding Shu placed a hand on his head and revealed that if he gave him a beating in public, people would only cheer him on. No one was going to help a vicious dog that was being beaten, and besides, Qiaoji was a particularly despised dog. He grabbed Qiaoji by the hair and asked if he really believed that he, the descendant of a hero, could be wrong. He prepared to hit Qiaoji, but at that moment, someone kicked him in the face, sending him to the ground. Qiaoji's eyes widened in surprise. It was Yunche, his eyes glowing with rage. He questioned if the hero's family didn't have time to discipline their brats. The students started recording, wondering if it was really Yunche. They commented that he seemed like a completely different person and couldn't believe he had dared to strike Ding Shu. According to them, he was crazy, and some remembered he was only level 5, the weakest in his class, so they wondered what had happened to him to make him dare to hit Ding Shu. He had no parents and had always been too gloomy to have friends, so they thought he had lost his mind. Ding Shu wiped his cheek, making it clear that Yunche was just a punching bag who should be grateful that Ding Shu wasn't coming after him. He couldn't believe he had still dared to attack him while he wasn't paying attention. He and his friends started charging towards our boy. Yunche moved like thunder, dodging their attacks and striking them before they could react. Ding Shu fell to his knees on the ground and started spitting blood. The students began to murmur among themselves. Ding Shu was in shock, as he couldn't believe how fast Yunche was. The students were somewhat confused as they didn't know what had happened. They questioned how he had been taken down again so easily, and if Ding Shu was, in fact, a weakling. Ding Shu exploded with rage, unable to believe how a trash-tier level 5 support could suddenly be stronger than him. Immediately, he used the skill, Hell, which increased his attack power by 25%. He equipped the Fireforged Hammer, which granted him 314 points of attack power. He thought Yunche had just gotten lucky and, without wasting another second, he lunged at him. Our boy moved quickly and, taking advantage of the opening, punched him in the jaw. He was using the skill, Blade of Trickery, which increased his attack power by 80%. Ding Shu was in shock. Our boy kicked him, sending him crashing hard to the ground. The guard arrived and, seeing Yunche stepping on Ding Shu, asked if there was a healer. The students were in shock seeing how fast Yunche was. They remembered he was only level 5. Even the blonde girl and her friend were in shock. The guard made it clear that fighting was forbidden inside the hall due to the risk of damaging something, and then asked the teacher why he couldn't control his students. The teacher started walking towards Yunche. He had not only insulted a hero, but had now also dared to assault his descendant. According to him, Yunche was shameless. The teacher unsheathed his sword, and Yunche's attention fixed on him. Our boy used the ring, and when the teacher tried to attack, his sword shattered into pieces, leaving everyone in shock. Yunche mentioned that they should set aside the discussion of who was shameless for a moment. He pointed out to the teacher that, although he claimed to be fair, he seemed to have only listened to Ding Shu's side of the story, and he questioned him directly, asking if he was trying to curry favor with his family. The teacher told him to stop talking nonsense, and then his gaze fixed on our boy's ring. He wondered what kind of equipment it was, since, although he hadn't used his full strength, it had managed to block his attack. As a powerful aura emanated from his body, Yunche clarified that it was just a casual comment and added that he didn't believe the teacher was that type of person. The students were in shock as they couldn't believe Yunche had even been able to block the teacher's attack. The teacher promised that he would thoroughly investigate the cause of this conflict. Internally, he wondered where Yunche had obtained that kind of equipment and if he too had some kind of backing. The ring Yunche wore was the Chimera Bone Ring, whose durability was already damaged by 37%. Despite being of epic quality, it was still just equipment obtained from a level 21 lord, so using it against the level 35 teacher was pushing it too far. Yunche asked to be expelled from the hall as punishment, along with Qiaoji. Qiaoji stood up and began to follow our boy with a confused gaze. The students couldn't believe that Yunche had been able to block the teacher's attack and wondered if this was something a student could do. The teacher asked his students to use a healing spell on Ding Shu, and in the meantime, our boy and Qiaoji left the hall. He was sad, as he couldn't believe that in the end, no one had survived, and Ben had been killed long ago by that so-called hero. His gaze fixed on Qiaoji, and he thought that if he asked him anything now, he would answer without thinking. He coughed and mentioned that his knowledge of history wasn't very good, so he asked him to recount the specific deeds of that hero. Ding Kun. Xiaozhi became nervous, mentioning that, although he wasn't sure if he remembered correctly, it seemed the hero Ding Kun had discovered the great villain Yun Che's conspiracy beforehand. He recounted that he had prepared an ambush near the Triple S rank dungeon to provide support, and that was how the entire rebellion crisis was resolved. Yun Che felt somewhat surprised. He began to remember his past life and how they had been ambushed. Qiao Zhi explained that the hero Ding Kun aspired to solve the dungeon crisis since he was young and always trained hard for it. After being promoted by the king, he fought across the country for years, saving various places from crises, like the very famous Great Cataclysm of Winterfell City. Yun Che began to gaze at the ground and ponder. The image of his past self standing on a mountain of corpses came to his mind. With a sad expression, Yun Che asked about the sword held by the hero's statue. Qiao Zhi explained that it was the Flowing Cloud sword, and added that, as the story went, it was the sword the hero had used to execute the traitor Yun Che. It was a top-tier piece of equipment. Yun Che's eyes began to glow with rage, as they had not only stolen his glory and achievements, but had even taken his sword. Then he decided that he would kill Ding Kun first. Outside the Ding family compound, several high-level warriors were patrolling. Suddenly, the eyes of one of them began to glow as his attention was drawn to something. Not far away, he saw Yun Che and Qiao Zhi slip into an alley. He decided not to pay much attention, thinking they were just passing through the area. Noticing how alert the man was, Yun Che wondered if he was a wanderer with a scout skill. Qiao Zhi suggested to Yun Che that they should just leave. He argued that there were too many guards, and that even if they managed to sneak in, the moment Ding Shu returned, they would be done for. Although he wanted to go and directly kill that hero, Ding Kun, he knew it wasn't possible. According to Qiao Zhi, Ding Kun spent all his time in a high-level dungeon. Unlike in his past life, one could not freely enter and exit dungeons now. The high-level ones were all guarded by the military, and a special pass was needed to enter. However, he was sure that Ding Kun's family must have such a pass in their home. Our boy asked if it was necessary for their family to keep so many guards, considering they were just one of dozens of branches descended from Ding Kun. Qiao Zhi revealed that, after all, they were descendants of a hero, and that they also had a dungeon within their property. Our boy's eyes widened in surprise to learn that they had a dungeon at home. Xiao Zhi mentioned that low-level dungeons had long been bought and sold privately, but this was not something that people without power and influence could even dream of. Ding Shu had guards with him all the time, so he could farm monsters and level up whenever he wanted. In contrast, ordinary students like them could only do so during the school's dungeon practicals, where they even had to fight over the monsters. Yun Che realized that this era had changed a lot and questioned if this didn't mean that the richer and more powerful one was, the higher their level would be. Qiao Zhi nodded, revealing that an ordinary person usually graduates from school between level 15 and 20, and since many no longer have access to dungeons after that, they remain stuck at that level. If one got a job related to dungeons, like a miner or a ranger in a national dungeon, they might reach a level close to 30 by middle age. In contrast, guards like those at Ding Shu's house could take advantage of their family's dungeon, allowing them to be around level 30. To reach a higher level, one generally had to be recruited by the army or enter an official organization, such as a guild or a military academy, through school assessments. Only then could one access higher-level dungeons and reach higher levels. Our boy knew that if he wanted to become stronger, that pass was essential. Qiao Zhi suggested they just leave, arguing that the level gap was too large and that no matter how skilled he was, he would be no match for those guards. Yun Che was aware that his current strength was far from enough to kill that hero, let alone the Supreme King Luo Wei, who was under layers of protection. However, he knew that the scouting skills one could learn around level 30 were generally small area skills, like Eagle Eye, Enhanced Hearing, or Krat Spirit Summoning. These were not enough to cover the entire mansion compound 24 hours a day. Besides, this wasn't a life-or-death dungeon, and most of the guards were very complacent. He concluded that it was more than enough for him to get in. Qiao Zhi panicked. Yun Che, however, took a leap and got onto the wall, thinking that compared to the almost flawless scouting in the high-level dungeons of his past life, this was much more relaxed. Qiao Zhi made it clear that even if they managed to get inside a private dungeon like this, they could be killed without any consequences. Our boy grabbed Qiao Zhi by the shirt and asked if he didn't want to change his life. Qiao Zhi admitted that he did, but he had planned to do it after joining a guild. Yun Che then asked if he really believed that a guild could change things for him. Qiao Zhi, the great-grandson of the traitor Qiao En, Xiaozhi's eyes filled with sadness. Our boy pulled him up onto the wall and made it clear that a person's destiny can only be changed in the present, not by betting on a what if that even he himself wasn't sure of. Yunche was not going to pass up the dungeon right in front of him. He decided to let him decide for himself if he wanted to follow. Qiaozhi began to sweat, and our boy pondered, wondering if the descendant would make the same choice as his ancestor. Qiaozhi stood up, as he simply couldn't let him go to his death. Yunche told him not to make a sound, explaining that there were no traces of a summoning-type scouting skill in this area. Therefore, as long as they kept their voices down, avoided their line of sight, and seized the right moment, they could easily get in. Yunche grabbed Qiaozhi and, following his plan, they managed to enter the Ding family compound. Qiaozhi's attention was fixed on a dungeon that unfolded underground. They entered the dungeon and saw two monsters, one level 6 and the other level 8. Our boy noted that the level was slightly higher than in the previous dungeon, but the number of monsters was not as high, probably because Ding Shu's family killed them regularly. Our boy mentioned that there were only two small mobs and asked him to go and give it a try. Qiaozhi couldn't help but feel scared and refused, stating that there was no way he could beat them. Our boy forced him to fight. The monsters attacked, and he summoned his shield to defend himself, still unable to believe that Yunche trusted him to win. Qiaozhi grew nervous and thought he shouldn't have come. Now he wanted to go home. Yunche suggested he try fighting back, but Qiaozhi asked how he was supposed to find an opportunity to fight back. Yunche assured him that he was watching and nothing bad would happen. Qiaozhi decided to trust him, and using his shield, he attacked. But then the other monster tried to attack from behind, but he reacted in time and dodged the attack. It was just as Yunche had thought. Qiaozhi's talent was actually quite good. The problem was that he was always timid and panicked easily, so he only dared to defend. However, his subconscious judgment of spatial positioning was extremely accurate. Because of this, it always seemed like he was in a dangerous situation, but he didn't lose much health. Qiaozhi attacked the monster, but his shield shattered into pieces. Yunche moved like thunder, killing the monsters. Qiaozhi was somewhat surprised as he had leveled up. He was now level 7. Our boy explained that experience was distributed according to contribution, and that if he didn't unbalance the monsters, he wouldn't get much EXP, even if Yunche was the one who killed them. Yunche wielded the Crescentful Bone Blade, a blade formed from the condensed resentment in a leg bone, which increased his attack power by 62 and his spiritual attack by 11. Yunche noticed that Qiaozhi's movements were very agile and asked him how he distributed his attribute points. Qiaozhi revealed that, except for spirit, he generally added them evenly. Our boy recalled that shield bearers didn't usually add points to agility. Qiaozhi explained that if he didn't, he found it difficult to find a party at school. He clarified that no one wanted to wait for a slow shield bearer, as by the time he arrived, the others would have already taken all the monsters. Yunche let out a sigh and explained that he needed to have a long-term perspective. He clarified that advanced class promotions after level 60 had attribute requirements. He gave the example of the Bastion Fortress class, which required 60 stamina and 90 defense points, concluding that he couldn't just add points randomly. Qiaozhi mentioned that the highest an ordinary person would ever reach in their life was level 40-something and wondered how he could even think about level 60, as that was S rank. Our boy placed a hand on his shoulder and, with a smile, told him that from that moment on, he could start thinking about S rank, or things far beyond S rank. That said, he also needed to start planning his own class advancement. He reflected that his support class had only been revived thanks to the hidden skill Mirror World, and that, if nothing unexpected happened, he would probably change to another class. He was in shock as he realized something stunning. His Mirror World skill could be leveled up. In the Ding family's private dungeon, Yunche fought monsters with surprising speed. His Trick Blade skill boosted his attacks, but it ended just as he hit a level 17 zombie greed demon. The monster, still alive, showed Trick Blade's power, but also its limits in long fights. Yunche's mana and stamina were low. The monster died, confirming his body couldn't handle extended battles. The fight yielded huge rewards. Yunche gained 2 levels, reaching level 17, and his health, mana, and attribute points increased rapidly. He also got 2 Shadow Creatures' Souls from Elite Zombies, which gave his SSS rank Mirror World skill 2,000 experience points, confirming he could level it up. After the battle, Yunche collected items, pleased with the levels and Mirror World experience. Suddenly, sensing danger, he moved higher and saw Ding family guards patrolling more often. Below, Qiaozhi, level 8, with new gear, nervously suggested they stop. He noted fewer monsters and high guard alert, making it too risky, wondering if they were found. Yunche agreed. Fighting now would be too hard, requiring constant guard watching and careful trick blade use. With his current power and increased security, the risk was too high. Yuncha looked at a new skill book, Brick Spell, which created mana bricks. When reversed by Mirror World, it became Void Technique, making small objects intangible. He realized not all reversed skills were for combat. Some had subtle non-fighting uses. Yuncha checked his Mirror World skill. It needed 30% more experience to level up. Standing on the cliff, he thought about the amazing power its reversal gave him, even at its basic level. He felt more determined, imagining how much stronger he'd become when it leveled up. With glowing eyes, Yunche made a new plan. This dungeon offered unique, mirror world experience from its monsters. He figured killing the boss could level up the skill to level 2, a reward too good to miss despite guard risk. They moved quietly through the cave, hiding behind rocks, as guards used detection skills more often, making their position risky. Yuncha cautiously peered ahead and saw their target. A massive, shadowed figure on a throne, bound by thick, glowing purple chains at the top of stairs. Many guards protected it. This was the dungeon boss. From their hiding spot, Chaoji was shocked to see a dungeon boss controlled like this. Yunche was less surprised, noting their school's boss was also guarded, suggesting it's common for strong groups. Yunche scanned the scene, seeing relaxed guards on the stairs. He focused on the glowing purple chains binding the boss, realizing they were powerful restraints. He quietly analyzed the situation. With so many guards, a direct attack on the boss would be suicidal and unwinnable, drawing everyone's attention. Yuncha knew he couldn't kill the boss with all the guards, but he saw an opportunity. A guard wandered off alone. He decided to take them out one by one. Covering his face, he used Trick Blade, 150% attack boost, and ambushed the guard. The ambush worked perfectly. The guard was instantly crippled and fell as Chaoji watched. Yunche stood over him with a dark presence, telling him to talk, to get information. Terrified, the guard begged for his life, offering any information, admitting the Ding family didn't pay him enough to die for them. Yunche listened, seeing this as his chance to ask about his main goal, infiltrating the compound. When Yunche asked about the Hero Dungeon Pass, the guard was shocked. He quickly said the old master had many in his study, and they weren't rare. Misunderstanding, the guard thought Yunche was a hero grandpa fanatic. Frightened by Yunche's silence, the guard swore he was truthful, saying he'd seen the old master take passes often. He warned that the passes were temporary samples. Without an insider, they'd be caught. Yuncho wasn't bothered. He grabbed the guard's collar, telling him not to worry. With a cold look, he ordered the guard to empty his inventory, showing his plan to steal from him and likely take his identity. Back at the Ding family compound, Yunche kept questioning the guard, holding him by his shirt. Yunche was disappointed by a single mediocre skill book. The terrified guard swore it was all he had, explaining the Ding family kept all valuable dungeon drops in their inner residence, leaving outer guards scraps. Yunche learned Sunlight Baptism, a passive skill giving temporary defense after healing. He used Mirror World to reverse it into Moonlight Blessing, a strong offensive skill granting temporary attack boosts after healing. He noted this skill, like the dungeon passes, was in the inner residence. The guard pointed to the lavish Ding inner residence, explaining outer guards like him couldn't enter without a direct summons. He said security was extreme. Except for Ding Shu, everyone inside was over level 50 with top gear, making outer guards unneeded. Yunche held the guard closer, asking if the pass was in the residence. The terrified guard confirmed it, adding the powerful family head, level 42, was also there, a foe Yunche couldn't beat. He detailed the family's strength. Current and second family heads, level 42, third family head, level 52, and old master, level 57. He warned that if the two strongest members returned, it would be impossible. After getting all the info, Yunche knocked the guard out. He had Chaoju wear the guard's armor as a disguise and wait for his signal. Since the powerful family head was safe inside, Yunche planned to lure him out instead of confronting him directly. Back in the dungeon, Yunche observed the boss. He understood the Ding family used high-level chains to keep the boss alive, creating a permanent private farming spot. He realized this system's security, relying on easily guarded chains, could be exploited. This was a big flaw. Guards thought their method was safe because no one would unlock the chains, but they didn't know Yunche, who, from his past life, knew how to unlock them. He quietly approached a guard and easily undid the lock. The chains fell, and the enraged boss broke free, going wild. Guards panicked as the huge monster rampaged. This chaos was exactly what Yunche needed to lure the family head out of the inner residence, using the perfect method to do so. The plan worked. Alarms blared as the level 42 family head rushed from the unguarded inner residence, ordering immediate dungeon reinforcement. As he and his guards charged to handle the crisis, Yun-che used the distraction to grab the powerful level 60 combat chains that bound the boss. Holding the pulsing high-level gear, Yun-che knew his plan succeeded. With the family head and elite guards busy, he and Chaoju could easily enter the inner residence. As Yun-che's plan opened the way, new people arrived at the main entrance of the Ding family home. Servants greeted the returning second master, Ding Hao, level 42, and his son Ding Shu, who drove up in a fancy car. Ding Hao brushed off Ding Shu's recent loss to Yun-che as a small mistake, but Ding Shu shot back that greeting his father wasn't why he was there. Ding Hao then opened the car door for a Miss Yun Sha. Two young women stepped out, one with long blonde hair, and her dark-haired friend, likely Yun Sha. The mustached family head, back from the dungeon mess, waited at the top of the stairs, smiling. Suddenly, his smile vanished, replaced by confusion, then anger. He roughly kicked a bowing servant out of his way, telling him not to block him. As the servant lay on the ground, the angry family head walked quickly towards Ding Hao, Ding Shu, and their two female guests, clearly upset. From the woods, Chaoju, dressed as a guard, watched the scene at the house. Yun-che suddenly appeared behind him, surprising the boy. Xiaoji said he was worried, noting that with the Ding family back, it wasn't a good time to sneak into the house. Yun-che calmly asked why he looked worried, and a surprised Xiaoji asked how he got there so fast. Yun-che explained that the creature he let loose was a dungeon lord. Even a level 31 was hard to catch alive, meaning it would keep the Ding family's main fighters busy for a long time. He said they wouldn't defeat the boss anytime soon, making it the perfect chance for them. With that settled, he asked Chaoji what he had seen. Chaozu looked back at the house sadly. He said the servant the family head had kicked was his youngest uncle, Chao Li, a level 17 man. Yun-che listened as Chaozu told a dark part of their shared past. He said that when the old Yun-che rebelled, his family had already been killed. Chaoji added that, in a way, this saved them from the years of shame and pain that followed for the children of traitors, like his own family. Hearing about the pain Yun-che's old friend's family had suffered because of lies about their past, Yun-che's face showed grim sadness and strong will. As they watched from the trees, Chaoju continued his family's sad story. He explained that after being called traitors, the Chao family faced constant meanness from the empire. Their homes were destroyed and their lives were ruined. It got worse under secret orders from the so-called hero Ding Kun, who made sure the surviving Chao members were picked on and hurt constantly. Beaten and broken, with no other choice to survive, the remaining Chao family members were forced to work for the very people who helped ruin them, the Ding family. Now, they live a poor life, always watching their masters' faces, bowing and scraping for scraps. Chaoji admitted with shame that they are sometimes shown off as proof of the Ding family's power and kindness for forgiving the children of a traitor. He said his father's generation tried to fight back and change their fate, speaking out against the unfairness, but their effort ended badly. The stress broke his father, who went crazy, while his uncle, Chao Li, became completely obedient, acting like nothing more than the Ding family's dog. Heavy with this hopeless history, Chao Ji began to doubt his own actions, wondering if it was right to follow Yun-che into such a dangerous place. His doubt was cut short when Yun-che turned to him and said firmly that he needed to go to the inner residence. Panicked, Chaoju tried to stop him, quickly reminding him that Ding Shu's father, a fully equipped level 42 fighter, was inside. He warned Yun-che that if he was found, he would surely die. Yun-che wasn't scared by the danger. He explained his belief that in this time, where powerful people control who can use power and dungeons, one can't hope to change their life without taking chances. He looked at Chaoji, adding that some things will never get done if one worries and waits too much. Finally, Yun-che gave him a clear choice. He told Chaoji he could help him change his fate, but Chaoji had to decide to act first. Yun-che made his own plans clear. He would fight back, but he wouldn't make Chaoji follow him. Even with Yun-che's strong will, Chaoji was still very scared and doubtful. He argued that the Ding family was a huge power that ruled the world, asking how the two of them could possibly fight such a big force. Yun-che turned away from him, looking at the distant inner residence as he started walking forward. He told the stunned Chaoji that his goal was much bigger than just taking down one family. The real enemy he planned to fight, he said, was the entire empire itself. Meanwhile, inside the quiet inner residence, Ding Hao relaxed on a couch, served by a maid. He wondered how the dungeon lord had broken free from its strong chains. Seeing him, the blonde girl with Ding Shu politely asked her uncle if it was a bad time, offering to visit another day because of the emergency. Ding Hao quickly waved away her worries, saying his older brother, the family head, could handle it. He promised her that a simple dungeon problem was far less important than her visit. He continued, smiling, explaining that when his powerful father, the old master, and his third brother heard she was coming, they had already started heading back to the house to meet her. Also, he said they had already contacted Hero Grandpa, who was very excited to meet her, making it clear that handling the situation would be very easy. From a hidden spot on a balcony, Yunche heard everything. His attention sharpened at Hero Grandpa, knowing they meant the so-called hero, Ding Kun. His mind raced, connecting this new info with what he'd learned from the captured guard. To enter the hero's dungeon, one needed both a pass and someone to go with them. He looked at the guests, seeing how respectfully Yun Sha was treated, and realized her status must be very high. Then, an important detail hit him. Her name was Yun Sha, sharing the same last name as his current self. He wondered if this was just a coincidence. For now, he pushed the thought aside. He focused his gaze, deciding to concentrate on his immediate goal, getting the dungeon pass. As he watched, Yunsha stood silently, her face unreadable, a figure of mystery and importance. With the Ding family's main fighters busy, Yunche used the chance to sneak into the inner residence. He moved silently through the rich hallways, slipping past two maids talking and using the shadows to hide. He went through the richly decorated halls, moving deeper into the mansion towards his goal. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, the problem was solved. The family head, Ding Yi, level 42, and his forces stood before the now defeated dungeon lord. Ding Yi looked at the situation, deciding the creature had been let loose on purpose. He was bothered, though, because they couldn't find who did it. He figured that taking such a big risk couldn't have been just for one piece of good equipment like the chains. Determined to protect his home, he ordered his guards to surround the inner residence first. His main concern was his important guest. He couldn't let anything scare the young lady. Inside the study, Yunche started his search. He went to the desk the guard had told him about, but was at first annoyed to find the drawers empty. Remembering his new non-fighting skill, he used phasing, the reverse of brick spell. This let his hand go through the solid wood of the desk, showing a hidden spot inside. He found a drawer full of books and journals. He pulled out the items, his eyes first landing on what looked like a diary. Pushing it aside, he found the real prize, a collection of high-quality, fancy skill books. One was for a strong support skill, Slowing Aura, which could slow all enemies in a wide area. He had found the family's secret stash. The entrance to the Ding family's inner residence was now full of guards. Hiding in the nearby woods, Chaoji watched in terror, wondering why all the guards had come and fearing they had been found. His panic grew as more guards arrived, and he realized the situation was too risky. He worried that if Yunche didn't get out right away, he would be caught. The fear of being caught brought back painful memories of his father going mad and his family's constant suffering. His first thought was to run, to sneak away, and save himself. As another guard came near his hiding spot, he was frozen by not knowing what to do. But at that key moment, Yunche's words came to his mind. He could be helped to change, but he had to make the choice himself first. Having made up his mind, Chaoji let out a loud shout, purposely getting the guards' attention. He then burst from his hiding spot and started running, leading them away from the mansion. He had made his choice. He would act as a distraction to make sure Yunche wasn't found. From inside the mansion, Yunche saw Chaoji's brave act. With the guards distracted, he broke a window and jumped out. He felt proud, realizing that his friend had finally overcome his fear and chosen to fight against his fate. To help Chaoji escape, Yunche created an even bigger distraction. He landed among the guards, taunting them by saying he had stolen the chains and skill books, daring them to come and get them. Angry, the guards immediately left their positions and chased him. As he ran, Yunche used the Slowing Aura skill he had just stolen. However, thanks to Mirror World, the skill was reversed, becoming Accelerating Aura, which sped up himself and any friends nearby. The family head, Ding Yi, saw them running, but noticed something strange. Instead of running away from the house, they were heading back towards the dungeon. Realizing the danger, he ordered two of his squads to stop chasing and go back to protect the dungeon lord. Qiaoji, now running beside Yunqi, was totally confused. He asked why Yunqi was leading everyone in the wrong direction, back towards danger. Yunqi explained his big plan. He knew that with so many guards drawn out to chase them, the remaining forces must have already defeated the Wild Dungeon Lord. To control the powerful boss, they would have had a huge fight. This meant the Lord's health was now at its very lowest point, making it weak. Yunqi checked the status of his ultimate skill, Mirror World, seeing how close it was to getting stronger. With his eyes glowing purple, he knew what he had to do. Killing the weakened Dungeon Lord now would give him the final push he needed to make his most powerful ability stronger. A tense quiet settled in the Ding family's lavish sitting room. The blonde girl sipping tea politely told Ding Hao, her host, he could attend to the outdoor commotion. Smiling confidently, Ding Hao, the second patriarch, dismissed it as a small thief, assuring his guest, his brother, Ding Yi, would handle it easily. But it was far from easy. In the dungeon, Grand Patriarch Ding Yi furiously tried to regain control. He yelled at a guard for being slow and ordered him to go directly after the rampaging overlord. Seeing Yunqi zip past, Ding Yi commanded his fastest units, rogues and archers, to abandon the boss and pursue the intruder at all costs. Their efforts failed. Yunqi moved with incredible speed, leaving them behind. He knew his advantage. He'd put half his attribute points into agility. Combined with his reversed acceleration skills, he was so fast that only specialized level 30 rogues or archers stood any chance of keeping up. He easily reached the main chamber where the skeletal overlord was surrounded. The beast was heavily wounded and crippled, with guards struggling to cast a sealing spell. Yunqi saw his plan worked perfectly. The boss was now at its weakest. With a surge of purple energy, he prepared to deliver one decisive blow to finish the weakened Dungeon Lord. As Yunqi neared, guards around the overlord spotted him. They shouted in alarm, scrambling to block his path. Before they could defend properly, Yunqi unleashed chaotic thorns. Purple, thorny vines erupted from the ground, lashing out at them. The guards were bewildered, having never seen this skill. The thorns tried to inflict a status ailment. Humans usually resist such effects, but Yunqi's skill was unnaturally potent, and several guards failed to resist it. The horrifying result: afflicted guards got confusion. One mage blasted a fellow guard with a powerful spell, throwing their ranks into chaos. The other guards watched in shock, stunned by the skill's impossibly high success rate. With enemies fighting each other, Yunqi seized his chance. He blurred easily through the disorganized guards. His path was clear to his prize, the low HP overlord, ripe for the taking. The guards' defense crumbled as Yunqi slipped through. They panicked, yelling why their shields and crowd control failed, accidentally hitting allies. Yunqi noted their poor coordination, recognizing them as a motley crew with no real team battle experience. He mused that long peace had made them soft, leading to their downfall. A guard captain tried to rally his men, insisting that if they could pin down the intruder, he'd be dead. Just then, First Patriarch Ding Yi arrived, commanding his men to hold Yunqi. The level 42 warrior, in fiery gear, declared he'd deal with the intruder personally. With his blazing weapon, he leaped, preparing a devastating attack on Yunqi. Yunqi watched the Patriarch's approach, readying himself. With a dismissive sound, he decided to face the attack head-on. He pulled out the level 60 combat chains he'd stolen. Though too low-level to fully equip, he knew their immense durability remained. As Ding Yi's fiery attack descended, Yunqi used the chains as a makeshift shield, successfully blocking the powerful blast's full force. Yunqi cleverly turned Ding Yi's powerful attack to his advantage. Instead of just blocking the fiery blast, he used its immense impact to propel himself backwards like a cannonball, shattering the magical seal guards tried to maintain around their boss. He landed perfectly before the crippled Dungeon Lord. With a final taunt, he cheekily thanked the enraged Patriarch for the ride. Before guards reacted, Yunqi declared he'd steal the Overlord's experience. He unleashed a powerful finishing blow, striking the weakened beast and ending its life. The payoff was immediate and huge. Yunqi gained a staggering 3 levels instantly, jumping to level 20 and receiving 9 new attribute points. Most importantly, the Dungeon Lord's massive experience maxed out his hidden skill, Mirror World. A system notification confirmed the skill was upgraded, finally reaching the coveted level 2. Seething with rage after his kill was stolen, First Patriarch Ding Yi screamed in fury and charged Yunqi with his fiery axe. Following his lead, the remaining guards rushed forward, determined to capture the audacious intruder who stood calmly before the massive Dungeon Lord corpse. But Yuncho was unafraid. He focused on his spoils, the new power his ultimate skill gained at level 2. As Ding Yi's powerful attack was about to connect, it passed harmlessly through a shimmering image of Yunche, who then vanished. The guards stopped, confused by his sudden disappearance. Yunche found himself in a completely new place. The world had transformed into a silent, crystal, blue-green version of the dungeon. He activated a new ability of his hidden skill, Mirror World. In this strange dimension, he saw ghostly, clear versions of Ding Yi and other guards, unaware of his presence. A timer showed his mirror walk would last almost 30 minutes. He realized with excitement that he could now enter the very world inside the mirror. Inside the strange blue-green world, Yunche started to use his new power. He saw that everything was a perfect mirror image of the real world, flipped left to right. At first, he thought the ghostly shapes of the guards were just tricks, as his hand went right through one. But when he touched the crystal-like ground, he found it was solid, realizing this place was more than just a trick. His exploration led to an amazing find. He picked up a solid crystal piece from the ground, and a message told him he had a mirror shard that, importantly, could be taken out of this world and into the real one. This was a big deal for Yunche. He understood that with his mirror world skill, now at level 2, he could bring real objects from this other world into his own. Wondering what else had changed with the skills upgrade, he checked his system screen. He saw a completely different list of skills, showing many powerful reversed abilities like invisibility and force field cage, but most of them were marked not activated, which confused him. A message quickly explained that these skills were for base skills, not yet learned. He then understood the full power of his new ability. The list showed the reversed forms of all skills he could learn. He now knew that to use any of these strong abilities, he first needed to find and learn their normal versions in reality. The skill reversal he used at level 1 was just a simple, basic part of his ability's true power. As he looked through the exciting list of future powers, he realized this changed everything. He could now pick strong skill pairs and plan his whole class path ahead of time, knowing exactly what powerful reversed forms he would get. As Yunche was thinking about his new skill's full potential, he suddenly felt something behind him. Turning, he saw a faint, blue-green human shape floating aimlessly in the crystal air. He wondered if it was a soul, like how he was stuck before he came back to life. The idea interested him, and he asked if other souls were also in this strange world. Without warning, the calm soul flashed with green energy, turning into a screaming, bone-like undead creature that lunged at him. Surprised, Yunche pulled out his glowing blade and got ready to fight. He met the creature's attack, and with one swing, easily smashed the undead being, noting it didn't seem very strong. Just as he finished the creature, a new message popped up, getting his attention. The system offered him an undead contract. It explained he could make a deal with the soul he had just beaten, letting it leave the mirror world and fight for him in the real world. The contract also said the soul's highest level would always be the same as his, and he could have 20 such contracts. This unexpected event made Yunche think about what this new power could do. Yunche thought about what his new power meant. He now understood that after beating an undead creature in the mirror world, he could make a deal with its soul and bring it out into reality as a powerful fighter. Holding the mirror shard he had made real, he knew his ability wasn't just for things like stones. The level 2 upgrade to Mirror World was a real game changer, letting him bring not only items, but also an army of undead from the mirror world into the real one. Looking at the huge crystal landscape full of possibilities, he found the idea interesting. Back in the real world, things were messy. With its lord defeated, the private dungeon had vanished, leaving a stunned and confused army of guards. They couldn't understand where the intruder had gone. One captain frantically asked how he just vanished, wondering if it was a high-level rogue's stealth skill. A rogue expert quickly said no, explaining their stealth had clear limits and couldn't make someone disappear so perfectly. The lack of answers made another captain angry, and he grabbed the rogue, demanding to know how the intruder could have escaped with so many of them there. The first patriarch, Ding Yi, was even angrier. Having lost his valuable private dungeon, he took his anger out on one of his men, grabbing the man's face and yelling that if they couldn't find the person responsible, they would have to pay him back for the loss. Meanwhile, Yunche's time in the mirror world was ending. As his mirror walk timer counted down, he wondered where he would show up again. Would he go back to his first spot, or were there other rules for leaving the mirror world? He got his answer a moment later when he appeared back in the real world, in the exact same spot where he had vanished. The angry Ding Yi spotted him right away, and without thinking, roared for his men to get him. Facing the new attack from the Ding family's fighters, Yunche stayed perfectly calm. He held up a hand, a swirling green light glowing in it, as he told them not to be so fast. He said that after being ganged up on for so long, it was time for him to do the same. With that, he used the power he had just gained from the mirror world. A flood of spooky, skeletal warriors burst out, forming a scary undead army that rushed towards the shocked guards. The guards reacted with pure terror, their attacks slowing as they questioned what these ghost-like figures were, wondering if they were actual ghosts. The first patriarch, Ding Yi, tried to calm the growing fear. He yelled at his men not to panic and said the creatures were just undead monsters he had seen many times before. One of the guards fought a skeletal warrior, getting ready for a tough fight. However, he was surprised to see a health bar appear above the creature. It was an undead skeleton warrior, and it was only level 20, the same as Yunche. Despite this, the fear was strong. Dingy's face twisted with rage at his men's continued hesitation. To get them to fight, he promised a bonus to everyone if they attacked and caught the intruder. The idea of a reward seemed to make them brave again. But as the guards turned their attention from the undead army back to Yunche, they found he was no longer there. Confused, they looked around, wondering where he could have possibly gone. Having used his newly summoned undead as a distraction, Yunche watched the fight from a safe distance. He judged that his current army was still too weak to be truly effective. He knew that if he could find and make deals with stronger souls, the disorganized guards would have been no match for him. However, he was limited by what he could find. He had already made deals with the 20 strongest souls available in the small area he had explored within the mirror world. Also, he found that his exploration of the mirror world wasn't endless. He had hit a wall that kept him within 200 meters of where he entered. This made him realize that to find better undead, he would need to enter the mirror world from different places in the future. His planning was cut short when he saw that his friend, Qiao Ji, who had been acting as a distraction, had been found hiding in the woods. One of the guards sneered at the disguised boy, teasing him about the reward he would get for catching him. Without hesitation, Yunche leaped from the shadows, quickly and precisely striking down the guards threatening his friend. With their path clear, he grabbed the stunned Qiao Ji and told him they were leaving. Looking at the mess he had created, with his undead army keeping the rest of the guards busy, Yunche decided their job was done. It was time to go back, get away from the danger, and properly check all the new things he had gained from his bold raid. As Yunche and Qiaoji escaped, the remaining Ding family guards fought the undead army. The guards fiercely attacked the skeletal warriors, breaking their bones. A guard leader noted the creatures weren't very strong, but their relief was short-lived. To their horror, a defeated skeleton would instantly reform, unharmed. They kept fighting, only for skeletons to revive endlessly. Just as the guards' spirits were breaking, Ding Ge, the strong level 52 third head of the Ding family, appeared, calmly smoking. He realized the skeletons were summoned creatures and that reviving them used their summoner's magic. With a confident smile, he concluded they just needed to kill them until their master ran out of energy. Sometime after the chaotic attack, the old master, the powerful head of the family with a long white beard, returned. He immediately asked if their important guest, Miss Yun Sha, had left. Inside, his son, Ding Hao, bowed respectfully, apologizing for failing to keep her there. He explained the intruder was unbelievably bold, causing a commotion by shouting and even breaking a window, which scared their guest away. The old master, the formidable level 57 Ding Dan, son of hero Ding Kun, was furious. He yelled at his son for the complete security failure, enraged that an intruder got in and escaped without being identified. Ding Hao bowed his head in shame, taking full blame. However, Ding Hao offered good news. Despite the chaos, Miss Yunsha agreed to go to the hero's dungeon, meaning his grandfather, Hero Ding Kun's matter was not ruined. This didn't calm the angry patriarch. Ding Dan swore they'd kill the culprits without mercy. He then impatiently ordered his son to quickly check what else was stolen. Safely away from the chaos, Yunche reviewed his gains. He looked at the temporary dungeon access permit he stole, which had Qiaoji's name. He had the pass, his main goal, but still needed an escort for the hero's dungeon. He decided not to rush this problem. He assessed his other gains from the Ding family house raid. It was very profitable, raising his level to 20. His powerful Chimera bone ring was almost destroyed from blocking an attack, but he'd stolen over 10 valuable skill books. He saw one book had chant skills, all support types. He learned Battle Song Chant, which boosted critical hit rate and damage but lowered defense. He immediately considered its reversed form, Shield Song Chant, which would do the opposite. He excitedly realized by learning and reversing these support skills, he could greatly boost his stats. With these boosts and a new passive skill that increased his strength, he knew he could crush any same-level opponent with pure stats. Besides skill books, the Dungeon Lord dropped a rare level 30 item, Corrupted Knight's Armor, which would be useful later. But most importantly, above all the levels, skills, and equipment, he had finally leveled up his hidden skill, Mirror World, to level 2. Thinking about his new abilities, Yunche admitted his necromantic summons greatly increased his combat power. But he knew it wasn't enough. Recalling the hero Ding Kun's statue, he judged his enemy was at least an S-rank berserker. To have any chance of killing him, Yunche figured he'd need to reach level 50 or higher and, more importantly, find and contract an S-rank necromantic spirit. Later, safe from the Ding compound, a still-shaken Chaoji nervously asked Yunche if they wouldn't be followed. Yunche calmly said they'd lost their pursuers and were safe since their faces weren't seen. Still, Chaoji was uneasy, and Yunche noted how hard the experience must have been for him. Seeing his current undead army was too weak, Yunche decided his next step. He asked Chaoji if there were any nearby dungeons where a powerful person had died. When Chaoji looked confused, Yunche explained he needed a higher-level dungeon to level up faster, adding the powerful person was for something he'd find out later. After a moment, Chaoji confirmed there was such a place. However, he hesitated, worried. He revealed it was the school's private dungeon, and they couldn't sneak in. The information made Yunche pause, thinking about a controlled, heavily guarded dungeon. But he didn't waver. He simply decided if normal entry was impossible, he'd use special methods to get what he wanted. As part of his special methods to enter the school's private dungeon, Yunche met his class teacher. He gave the teacher a valuable, rare purple-quality skill book for his Wanderer class, stolen from the Ding family. The bribe worked. The teacher, now believing Yunche had powerful backing, became more helpful. He admitted dungeon access was usually fixed, and he couldn't easily change things. However, he explained a loophole. The dungeon was open for graduating students. While Yunche wasn't normally qualified, a teacher could recommend an outstanding student. Convinced of Yunche's outstanding potential, he promised to get him a spot. The plan succeeded. Yunche joined students entering the school's Valiant dungeon. Other students were determined or flattering. One grimly noted it might be his last chance to level up, while another thanked the hero. As Yunche walked past the glowing portal, he felt a strange unease, sensing something was wrong with this dungeon. The teacher enthusiastically explained it was where the hero once fought, and traces of his power might remain inside. Nearby, Chaoji listened grimly. He horrifyingly realized the Valiant dungeon was where, according to the Empire's fake history, hero Ding Kun valiantly killed his great-grandfather, traitor Chao En. Knowing the dark truth, Chaoji hesitated. He struggled, wondering if he should tell Yunche what he knew about the dungeon's true history. As students gathered at the dungeon entrance, the teacher gave a final warning. It was a high-level dungeon, and they must be careful within their limits. He then singled out a red-haired student in armor, Little Z, telling him to look after Yunche and Chaoji. Little Z was clearly annoyed, complaining he couldn't focus on leveling up if he had to babysit. Another student pushed him forward, telling him to stop complaining as the dungeon was open. Grumbling about why younger students were allowed, Little Z entered the dungeon with the others. He condescendingly ordered Yunche and Chaoji to stay back and not cause trouble, threatening to abandon them if they were a burden. As the group went into the vast, purple-lit interior, Yunche silently assessed his surroundings. He noted it was supposed to be a level 20-40 dungeon. However, his instincts from his past life screamed something was wrong. A deep unease washed over him as he felt a profound danger that didn't fit a dungeon of this supposed difficulty. As students went deeper into the glowing purple Valiant dungeon, Yunche saw Yun Yin and her blonde friend, Yun Sha, inside. He wondered how they, as younger students, were allowed. Little Z, assigned to watch Yunche, also saw the girls and pointed them out to another armored student. This student immediately dreamed of escorting the attractive girls. His fantasy was cut short by a taller, serious student in a helmet who smacked him, telling him to stop dreaming. This student revealed Yun Yin and Yun Sha were much stronger, both over level 30. He scoffed that they should be asking the girls for help, and the daydreaming student wasn't good enough for them. Embarrassed, the student muttered he was just talking. As the older students talked, the daydreaming boy watched Yun Sha and Yun Yin. To his and his friend's surprise, the two high-level younger students ignored them and walked directly towards Yunche and Chaoji. Yunche watched them approach, confused. He recognized Yunsha as the high-status guest from the Ding family's house. Her direct approach made him suspicious. He wondered if she knew the original owner of his body, or if she was confronting him for Ding Shu, whom he'd publicly embarrassed. Yunsha's approach was direct and friendly. Smiling confidently, she told Yunche she saw him at the memorial hall and complimented his fighting skills, adding his voice was unique. Yunche wasn't sure what she wanted, thinking she was just making small talk. However, Yunsha's eyes glowed gold as she leaned closer, revealing she recognized his voice from the shattering glass during his escape from the Ding family residence. This stunned Yunche. He realized, alarmed, that this powerful girl had identified him as the intruder just from 2 sentences he shouted. Having made her point, Yunsha's clothes changed to white, mage-like combat gear. Yun Yin did the same, putting on a dark, green energy outfit. Yunsha then told a still surprised Yunche they'd explore the dungeon first, then walked away with her friend. As they walked off, Yunche processed the encounter carefully. He understood she recognized him as the intruder, but chose not to expose him publicly, subtly delivering the message. This made him wonder if it was a warning. He considered the dangerous possibility that Ding Shu also recognized his voice from their earlier fight. However, Yunche decided not to worry for now. He was confident that as long as the Ding family didn't act immediately, his fast leveling speed would soon make him strong enough for any threat they posed. Seeing her act as friendly, he decided to offer a warning back. He called out, advising them to be careful, as his instincts told him the dungeon felt strangely dangerous. Yunsha stopped and seemed to agree, telling her friend the place felt odd. She reflected that given her high level, the dungeon shouldn't feel so unsettling. With a final knowing smile at Yunche, she thanked him for the warning before she and Yunyin continued. The brief friendly talk between Yunche and the high-level girls didn't go unnoticed. The other older students watched in disbelief, gossiping about why the usually cold Yunsha was so familiar with him. Driven by jealousy, they surrounded Yunche, asking about his relationship with her and demanding an introduction. Not interested, Yunche cut off their questions, announcing he and Xiaozhi were leaving the group to explore alone. The older students were shocked by his overconfidence, warning him that as younger students, the level 20 monsters would surely kill them. To their surprise, their supervisor, Little Z, told them to let the two go. He reasoned that for Yunche to be friendly with someone as powerful as Yun Yin, his own level must be high. When others protested, reminding him of their teacher's orders, Little Zai's true motive was revealed in his thoughts. He aggressively reminded his friends of their real reason, to find precious crystals. He didn't want to share the loot, so letting them wander off was perfect. He finalized his decision by callously telling the group to ignore them, reasoning they had distress signal guns if needed. As Yunche and Xiaozhi walked away, he watched them with anger and jealousy. He couldn't understand why a plain kid got Yunsha's attention. His envy grew into dark malice. He concluded if Yunche was so overconfident, he deserved to die. Sometime after Yunche and others entered the dungeon, an angry Ding Shu arrived at the entrance. A male staff member and a woman asked him what he was doing. Filled with rage, Ding Shu grabbed the man's shirt, asking if a team had just gone inside. The staff member demanded to know what he planned to do. This fight came after a frustrating meeting Ding Shu had with his family elders. When he tried to tell them Yunche and Xiaozhi were the intruders who raided their home, his father, Ding Hao, dismissed him. He coldly told him not to blame them for his public humiliation, as he had no time for such small matters. Ding Shu strongly insisted he recognized their voices from the raid. However, Ding Ge was doubtful, pointing out the intruders were too skilled to be mere students, easily escaping many guards. Ding Ge said unless Ding Shu could prove their strength was greater than the guards, he couldn't support his claim. The family head, Ding Dan, coldly told him to leave them to their important matters. Dismissed by his family, Ding Shu had no choice but to act himself. Back at the dungeon entrance, he again confronted the staff member, declaring with crazy determination that since Yunche and Xiaozhi were inside, he had to go after them. Inside the dungeon, Yunche was fighting a tough level 20 greed demon crystal giant. The creature, made of sharp blue crystals, attacked fiercely. As Yunche dodged its hits, an even stronger enemy appeared, a level 30 greed demon crystal eye. It shot a powerful beam of purple energy right at him. Seeing the new monster's immense power, Yunche got ready for the hit. From far away, a terrified Xiaozhi shouted Yunche's name and used a support skill. A set of golden shields with angel wings appeared around Yunche, protecting him from the attack. The skill, called Surrounding Shield, gave Yunche a shield with 500 durability and 700 defense for 3 minutes. Qiaoji didn't stop there. He used a motivational shout, which wrapped Yunche in an aura that boosted his power. This gave Yunche the inspired status, increasing his attack power and speed by 5%. It showed that Qiaozhi was quickly becoming a very good support player. Strengthened by Qiaoji's help, Yunche used a series of powerful attacks on the huge crystal monster. With his Trick Blade skill active, which gave him a 70% attack boost, he shattered the strong level 30 Eye of the Mountain with a final, strong hit. The victory brought quick results. Yunche leveled up to level 21 and got 3 new attribute points. Qiaoji was also happy, shouting in surprise as he leveled up to 11 and also got 3 attribute points. Yunche explained to his friend that the surrounding shield and motivational shout skills came from the books they had stolen from the Ding family. He said they were very useful skills that Qiaoji was able to learn. As he looked at the defeated monsters' remains, Yunche thought about how much better their teamwork had gotten. He knew the monsters in this dungeon were a bit high level, but Qiaoji's new support skills made the fights much easier to handle. As they went deeper into the dungeon's crystal caves, Yunche remembered something his teacher had said. The teacher had mentioned a rare monster in this dungeon called the Obsidian Beast. He had said that killing it gave a chance to get a rare support skill book for gravitational pull. This was a big chance for Yunche because he had already seen the skill's reversed form, Force Field Zone, on his Mirror World skill list and knew it was a key skill for his future plans. But hunting the beast wasn't his only goal. He looked out at the huge, spooky landscape, knowing that this dungeon was also said to be where many powerful adventurers had died. He believed their souls might still be where they fell, giving him a chance to find and contract powerful undead spirits for his army. He hoped he could find some of these souls in the area. Suddenly he felt danger and his eyes widened in alarm. In the canyon below, a huge creature made of dark, glowing purple rock appeared. It was not alone. A whole group of these elite-level obsidian beasts was on the move, marching together through the Crystal Pillar Canyon. From a high cliff, Yunche and Qiaozhi watched the strange sight. Yunche saw that the elite beasts were moving in a large group and had also traveled at least a kilometer, much farther than they normally would. This very unusual organized behavior led him to a serious conclusion as he mumbled the words, "Wanderer type, huh?" He recognized the signs of a much bigger and smarter threat. The way the obsidian beasts were acting reminded Yunche of something, and he explained what a wanderer-type monster is. These are rare creatures that don't have a fixed spawn location and wander freely all over a dungeon map. They are much stronger than normal monsters of the same level and can easily beat unprepared adventurers. Back in the early days, before people grew strong and learned to control dungeons, running into a wanderer type often meant a very hard fight to survive. These creatures were especially dangerous because they weren't stuck in the dungeon. They could wander outside and threaten human towns, causing a lot of disasters and death. However, Yunche also knew that this huge risk came with an equally huge reward. The experience and items dropped by wanderer-type monsters were much better than any ordinary creatures, making them a high-risk, high-reward target for any adventurer brave enough to face them. Knowing the huge threat from the group of obsidian beasts, Yunche knew he couldn't be careless. He knew that the monsters were simply too strong to attack directly and decided he would need to test their abilities first to find a weakness. His first look showed a strong defense. The level 30 obsidian crystal beasts had a powerful healing skill that was always on, making them very hard to wear down. Before he could think of a new plan, the beasts attacked back, shooting a coordinated blast of powerful energy beams called mana rays. Yunche used his high speed to weave through the thick web of attacks, helped by the winged shields Qiaoji had summoned for him. But the monster's attacks were too many and too frequent. One of the beams eventually hit him, drawing blood and sending a shock of pain through his back. He realized that even his high speed wasn't enough to dodge all of them. A quick look at his health bar showed how much danger he was in. His health had dropped a lot. He knew he was weak, that his current body's HP and defense were just too low. He understood that if it weren't for Qiaoji's surrounding shield, he would have been badly hurt by that single hit. Knowing he was too weak, Yunche tried a different plan. He summoned his undead army, a group of spooky skeletons in green flame, to hold back the obsidian beasts. But the power difference was too big. The elite monsters tore through his summons, and he could see the health bars of his skeletons dropping quickly. He realized with frustration that even his undead army couldn't hold the line against such strong enemies. He made a smart retreat, noting that at least the powerful monsters were pretty slow, which gave him some time. He knew his own low health and defense were weaknesses that couldn't be fixed quickly. He decided that the only real way to beat these creatures was to rely on Xiaoji's defensive skills. To make that possible, however, his friend needed to level up. Yunche turned to Xiaoji and explained the new plan. They would go fight regular, weaker monsters first to get stronger. They moved to an area with weaker monsters, where Yunche pointed out a group of enemies he had seen earlier, saying they were perfect for helping Xiaoji level up. In group fights, the shield bearer is the main defense. Other classes count on the shield bearer to take damage, letting them attack safely from a distance. Following Yunche's earlier advice to aim for S rank, Xiaoji had been carefully putting all his new stat points into his defense. This special build, plus the armor they had stolen from the Ding family guards, was now showing how good it was. Xiaoji had built up the main defenses of a real shield bearer, and he could now easily block attacks from level 20 monsters, taking only a little damage. Under Yunche's experienced teaching, Xiaoji began to train hard to master his role as a shield bearer. From a distance, Yunche shouted instructions, teaching his friend the basics of a good defensive stance, telling him how to shift his weight, steady his body, and angle his shield to block a coming attack. Putting the lessons to work, Xiaoji successfully blocked a powerful hit from a crystal monster. He was happy to see a real result of his better skill. A message showed his shield's durability was going down much slower than before, but he was still inexperienced. As Yunche warned him to watch for follow-up attacks, the monster hit again, catching Xiaoji off guard and knocking him to the ground. Before the creature could land a final blow, Yunche jumped in, blocking the attack and saving his friend. He used the moment as another lesson, explaining why it's important to always guess the enemy's next move. He told Xiaoji to avoid big, sweeping movements with his shield, which would leave him open, and instead focus on smaller, more efficient blocks that would let him attack back. Patting his friend on the shoulder, he gave one last piece of advice: to stay alert, but keep his body relaxed, only tensing up at the exact moment of impact to save energy and react faster. The training continued without stopping. With a final encouraging pat on Xiaoji's armor, Yunche told him to keep up the good work. He stood behind his friend, always giving support and teaching him another key lesson for a shield bearer: to always keep an eye on the teammates behind them. Hearing this, a look of quiet determination appeared on Xiaoji's face. They put their training to use, fighting side by side against the dungeon's monsters. Yunche reminded his friend of a main rule of fighting: when stats are close, it is better skill that decides who wins. Their teamwork paid off. After beating another monster, Yunche leveled up once more, reaching level 22. He was happy with their progress. Now that Xiaoji could face enemies with confidence, it meant they could fight more efficiently, letting Yunche gain experience at a much faster rate too. The biggest growth, however, was for Xiaoji, who excitedly announced that he had finally reached the important level of 15. Reaching this level was a key moment. Xiaoji could now learn a new, powerful skill from one of the books they had stolen. He held up the glowing, rare skill book for shield armor, a skill that would add an outer layer of armor to his shield. This would give it huge amounts of durability and defense that grew with his own stats, making him an even stronger tank. With his level high enough, Xiaoji learned the shield armor skill, which was the last skill book he could use from the Ding family's collection. The new ability appeared as a layer of glowing green armor over his summoned shield, greatly improving its defensive power. Yunche also noted that the skill's defensive boost would be a huge help when they faced the obsidian beasts again. Meanwhile, in another part of the Crystal Pillar Canyon, a group of 3 men from the school's teaching team were watching the same group of elite obsidian beasts that Yunche and Xiaoji had seen earlier. The teachers were confused by the huge number of elite-level wanderer types gathered in one place. They decided that the monsters were far too dangerous for the students and that they needed to be killed. However, they knew how hard the job would be. While they were sure they could handle regular level 30 monsters, the elite-level wanderer types were a completely different story, much more powerful and unpredictable. Their discussion was cut short when they saw a student's distress signal flare up in the sky. Forced to change their plans, the teachers decided to stop their hunt and rescue the students first. As they got ready to leave, however, they showed their deep worry about the group of wanderers. They knew the monsters were a major threat, and that any student who stumbled upon them without knowing would be in serious danger. As the teaching team got ready to leave for the rescue, one of them, Pang Zheng, agreed that it was dangerous and offered to stay behind just in case. The team leader, Lei Li, was about to agree when they were interrupted by Yunche and Xiaoju suddenly appearing. Yuncha shared his own worry, suggesting that he and Xiaozhi could keep watch on the group of wanderers instead. He reasoned that if the rescue party ran into another group of powerful monsters, 2 teachers alone might not be enough to handle the situation. He walked up to the surprised teachers and calmly explained his idea. He told them that the wanderer types were not very fast, and more importantly, had not noticed their presence yet. He promised them that as long as he and Xiaozhi kept a safe distance and simply watched, they would be perfectly fine, and urged the teachers to go on ahead without worry. After hesitating for a moment, the teachers agreed to the plan. However, before they left, Lei Li gave Yunche a very serious warning. He stressed that the monsters were extremely dangerous and that Yunche and Xiaozhi must absolutely not act on their own or try to fight them. He repeated that they must stay hidden because if the powerful creatures spotted them, they would have no chance of escape. As the teachers hurried away, one of them yelled a final, desperate warning for Yunche to hide well, telling him he would have no way to escape if the monsters found him. But Yunche had no plans to hide. As soon as the teachers were gone, he started his own attack on the group of obsidian beasts, confidently saying that it was the monsters who wouldn't be able to escape from him. He put their new plan into action. He summoned his undead army to act as a front line, taking the first wave of Mana-Ray attacks from the powerful beasts. This time, however, the skeletons were not alone. Xiaozhi, who was now a very strong tank, used both his surround shield and his new shield armor skills. This created a super strong defensive wall to protect the skeletons. The powerful energy beams, which had been a big threat before, now hit the strong shields without doing any damage, barely even scratching the undead warriors they were protecting. With the monster's attention on his unbreakable front line, Yunche moved through the chaos and started his own fierce attack. He landed a series of very strong hits, breaking the crystal bodies of the elite-level monsters with just his fists. He focused his attacks on one radiant crystal monster, watching its health bar get smaller with each hit. With a final, sharp blow, he broke the creature's core, and the strong level 30 beast fell down, defeated. It dropped a beam of light, which meant there was valuable loot. After successfully beating one of the powerful wanderer-type monsters, Yunche felt good. He noticed that he was getting more and more used to his new support class, skillfully using his own attacks with Xiaozhi's defenses and his undead army. However, he knew his current power level was still much weaker than what he had in his past life. While his reversed skills let him increase his attack power a lot, he was still held back by the naturally low base attack of a support class. He wished he had a way to increase his basic damage even more. He thought about his other gains from the battle, like the titles he had earned for beating powerful monsters. The victory had also given him another level up, and he was happy to see just how much experience the rare elite-level monsters gave. As he walked up to the monster's body to pick up the dropped items, a message confirmed he had successfully gotten the valuable rewards. As Yunche looked at the loot from the defeated monster, his eyes widened in surprise. He had gotten a powerful weapon with high attack, a huge glowing pink crystal longsword that gave him a massive plus 552 bonus to his attack power. A slow smile appeared on his face as he realized this was the perfect answer to his problem. This one weapon would be more than enough to make up for his class's naturally low base attack power. He equipped the sword, and it changed in his hands, becoming a larger, more threatening blade that crackled with dark purple energy. With this new power, he was sure that future fights would be much easier. However, his luck wasn't perfect. He looked at the other item that dropped, a skill book, but was disappointed to see it wasn't the specific gravitational pull skill he had been hoping to find. He guessed that the chance of that particular skill dropping must not be very high. As he stood on the cliff edge, wishing for better luck and a chance to hunt more of the high-reward wanderer monsters, his thoughts were cut short. A bright red, firework-like explosion suddenly lit up the sky in the distance, and it immediately caught his attention. Yuncha right away recognized the flare in the sky. It wasn't just any distress signal. It was the special kind of flare that only the school's teacher teams had, which meant they were in serious trouble. The teachers, who had gone to what they thought was a student's distress call, found themselves in a very bad situation. They had stumbled upon a huge group of the elite wanderer-type monsters, all gathered around a single cave entrance. They couldn't understand why so many of the powerful creatures were all there. Soon after, Yunche, Xiaozhi, Yunsha, and Yunyin also arrived. They were just as confused by the huge number of monsters gathered in one place. One of the teachers explained that they had just arrived after seeing the signal and didn't know what was happening yet. He pointed towards the cave, explaining that the signal was coming from inside and that the students they had come to rescue must be trapped in there. Another teacher explained their bad situation. They were trying to organize a rescue, but the group of monsters was simply too big. Even with all the teachers together, they didn't have enough people to break through. Seeing the powerful Yunsha and Yunyin arrive, one of the teachers looked to them for help, saying it would be a great help if they could assist in the rescue. Without hesitating, Yunsha accepted the teacher's request, saying that saving fellow students was their duty. She immediately took control of the battle, summoning a glowing, star-shaped magic object and using a powerful area-wide buffing spell called Starlight Mystic Art. The spell washed over the teachers and students, wrapping them in a golden light that greatly increased their spirit and attack power. The pure strength of the buff stunned everyone, who recognized it as an epic-level skill at the very least. With her allies now stronger, Yunsha turned her attention to the monster group, using a powerful attack spell, Gravitational Pressure, that crushed a huge area of the Wanderer beasts. At the same time, Yunyin joined the fight, using her own devastating attack, Hidden Thorn, which instantly destroyed a level 30 radiant crystal spike, showing her own incredible power. The combined strength of their attacks was amazing. The other students and teachers could only watch in awe as the once unbeatable monster group was destroyed. One of the students said that with this level of power on their side, they should be able to rescue the trapped people now, and he praised the amazing strength of Yunyin and Yunsha. Watching the incredible display of power from Yunsha and Yunyin, Yunche was very impressed. He noted that not only was their equipment top level, but their skills were as well. He concluded that with their help, the rescue would succeed without any problems, even if he wasn't there. With the immediate problem handled, Yunche's attention turned to the bigger mystery. As the rescue team moved toward the cave, he wondered what could have possibly attracted so many powerful wanderer-type monsters to gather in this specific spot. Deciding to investigate on his own, he told Xiaozhi to stay with the main group while he went ahead to scout. Yunche then used his newly upgraded ability, Mirror Walk, and phased out of reality and into the parallel mirror dimension. He looked at the strange, purple-colored landscape, realizing that the dungeon's crystal structure gave him plenty of reflective surfaces, letting him enter the mirror world at any time. However, he also knew there were limits to this power. He hadn't yet figured out how to leave the dimension whenever he wanted, remembering how he was thrown out when the timer ran out during his raid on the Ding family's house, and he couldn't get back in. As he moved through the mirror version of the cave, passing by the ghostly, untouchable phantoms of the other adventurers, he noticed something strange. The people had phantoms, but the monsters did not. Looking closer, he saw that the bodies of the monsters he had killed before existed physically in this dimension. This led him to a key understanding of his ability's rules. Besides himself, it seemed that other living things did not have a physical form in the mirror world, only their dead bodies. Moving silently and unseen through the mirror world, Yunche followed the ghostly phantoms of the other adventurers into the cave. He quickly recognized them as the group of senior students, including the one called Little Z. He figured that they must have been the ones who attracted the huge group of wanderer monsters, and, finding themselves overwhelmed, had fired the distress signal. From where he was, he could see they were using the narrow space of the cave to hold their ground, which should keep them safe for a short time. However, the main mystery was still there. What could possibly be inside the cave that would attract so many of these powerful creatures? He kept going, moving deeper into the mirror version of the cave to investigate. The confusing crystal landscape made it hard to find his way, with the endless reflections making it difficult to judge things. Suddenly, he froze, his eyes widening in shock and disbelief. He had found something completely unexpected, something that shouldn't be in a place like this at all. As he went deeper into the cave in the mirror world, Yunche's eyes widened. He had found the dungeon's true treasure, a huge vein of special, glowing green crystal ore. Now he understood why Little Z and his group had risked so much to come here. Dungeons often have special resources that don't exist in the real world, which are used to make powerful and unique equipment. The green ores were one such resource, worth far more than gold. As he looked at a green crystal, a message popped up, calling it a mirror image crystal ore. The message confirmed he could loot it and take it out of the mirror world, but more importantly, it asked him, "Return to the real world from here?" This was a huge discovery. To check his idea, he touched a different, normal blue crystal and saw the same message. A slow, smart smile appeared on his face as he realized what his ability could do. He now understood that as long as he could find any mirrored surface, he could use it as his own personal exit to return to the real world whenever he wanted. As he walked among the glowing green crystals, Yunche picked up a piece of the valuable ore. He thought about his newly upgraded skill, knowing there was still much more to learn about its full power and that he would need to find a good chance to study it. For now, however, he decided to focus on exploring the huge crystal vein he had found. As he went deeper, he was shocked by how much treasure there was. The amount of ore was huge, a massive deposit that would be enough to make any normal person who mined it a billionaire. This amazing sight finally solved the mystery that had been bothering him. He now understood why so many powerful wanderer-type monsters had gathered at the entrance to this cave. They were drawn to, and probably guarding, this incredibly valuable resource. Back in the real world, the rescue was happening. Yunsha kept using powerful spells like gravitational pressure to crush the wanderer monsters, while Yun Yin followed up with her own deadly dual blade dance that tore through the remaining enemies. Not happy with just helping her allies, Yunsha also showed her own attack power with Star Rain Art, a devastating spell that hit a wide area. The students and teachers watching were completely stunned, wondering if all of the girls' skills were epic level, as their power was much greater than the teachers'. With a final, huge cross-shaped slash, the last of the wanderer beasts at the cave entrance was destroyed. The path was now clear for the rescue team to go in and get the trapped senior students, who were huddled together, tired but alive. As the rescue party led them out, one of the seniors, Little Zai, said he was very relieved, saying that he thought he was going to die in the cave. However, the always careful Yun Yin was quick to stop his relief, warning him not to relax. She pointed out that they still had to fight their way out of the dungeon, and that everyone was already tired from the last battle. Yunsha agreed, but added with a confident smile that with their help, the escape should be much easier than their last struggle. As the rescued senior students were being led out of the cave, Yunsha's eyes suddenly widened, a look of surprise and worry on her face as she sensed something was wrong. Her bad feeling was right, as the students behind her let out terrified screams. The reason for their terror was a horrifying sight. The path ahead, which had been cleared just moments before, was once again full of an unbelievably large group of the elite wanderer-type monsters. It was as if every single wanderer in the whole dungeon had suddenly gathered in this one spot, completely blocking their path to safety. While the rescue team was being swamped by the sudden return of the wanderer group in the real world, Yun Che was continuing his solo exploration of the other mirror world. He moved through the confusing, maze-like paths of the crystal cave, his way lit by the strange green glow of the special ore veins. Suddenly, he stopped, his eyes widening in complete disbelief at what was in front of him. He had stumbled upon an amazing sight, a huge, tree-like crystal formation that reached the top of the cave, and at its very top, a brightly glowing, star-shaped crystal core pulsed with immense energy. He immediately knew what it was, the dungeon's legendary secret treasure. As he got closer to the core, he remembered the stories about such items. If the different crystal ores were the dungeon's special products, then this crystal core was the ultimate prize, the dungeon's one and only secret treasure. These treasures are the condensed form of all the special products in a dungeon, taking a very long and unknown amount of time to form. They are so rare that a normal person might never see one in their whole life. Most importantly, every secret treasure, without fail, has a unique and powerful special effect. As Yun Che reached out to touch the glowing object, he knew he had found the true heart of the Valiant Dungeon. With a happy smile, Yun Che reached out to the glowing green crystal core he had found. A system window appeared, naming the item as the Mirror Image Crystal Core. It was a unique quality secret treasure that, when used, would permanently give a plus 110 boost to stamina, a plus 0.5 increase to mana recovery speed, and a 20% reduction in damage from light and electric type attacks. The description also said that it was a copy of the true secret treasure. Yun Che was thrilled with the discovery. He understood that the increase in stamina would greatly boost his maximum health, while the faster mana recovery meant he could use his powerful Trick Blade skill more often, increasing his damage. With a smart grin, he focused on what he thought was the most important effect, the 20% damage reduction for light and electric types. He knew that percentage-based damage reduction was an incredibly rare and valuable effect, even among the very best equipment. To make it even better, as a consumable secret treasure, it wouldn't even take up one of his valuable equipment slots. However, as he held the treasure, a strange thought came to him. He knew that just as the crystal ores had attracted the Wanderer monsters, a secret treasure this big should logically be protected by a monster whose strength was much greater than the Wanderers he had seen. Deciding not to stay long, he got ready to use the secret treasure and then get out. A system window gave him two choices: to either loot the item for later or use it right away. As he went to choose use, another message appeared, revealing a surprising rule. Using or taking the item would require using up 10 minutes of his remaining mirror walk time, which caught him by surprise. Back in the real world, just as the rescued students were starting to feel a sense of relief, a deep and powerful rumbling sound suddenly shook the whole cave. The teachers and students looked up in terror, and even the very powerful Yunsha and Yunyin were frozen with looks of shock and alarm. From behind the huge crystal formations, a new, huge threat appeared. It was a giant monster, a much larger and more threatening version of the wanderer beasts they had just fought, crackling with dark purple energy and making everything else in the cave look small. The group immediately understood the horrifying truth of their situation. They had stumbled upon the Lord of the Wanderer species, a powerful, hidden boss of the dungeon. The teachers and students knew how bad their situation was. They were facing a wandering lord, a rare hidden boss that was separate from the dungeon's main boss. A creature like this is much stronger than a normal boss, and this one, with its huge army of elite followers, was a threat they couldn't hope to fight against. Panic started to spread. One of the students cried out in fear, saying he thought wandering lords only showed up in high-level dungeons. The fear was spreading, and the others began to lose hope, believing they were all going to die. Just as they were about to fall apart, Yunsha's calm, strong voice cut through the chaos. She told everyone to calm down, reminding them that the most important thing was to work together to escape. Taking control, she pointed to a narrow canyon, saying it was their only way out of the basin they were trapped in. She explained a clear plan. As long as they could break through the line of monsters and get out of the basin, their faster speed would let them get away easily. With a final encouraging shout, she used her powerful starlight mystic art again, strengthening the whole group. She ordered everyone not to hold back and to push forward with all their power towards the canyon exit. Inspired by Yunsha's leadership, the teaching team leader, Lei Li, jumped into action. Saying they had to at least get the students out safely, he turned on his light refracting shield. He announced that the teachers would take turns leading the attack, with him going first, and he rushed into the group of monsters to make a path. The other teachers and students followed close behind, their combined attacks creating a powerful push forward. Support class members cast healing and defensive spells on the frontline fighters, making sure they could keep moving. Surrounded on all sides, the group formed a tight defensive circle, slowly but surely pushing their way towards the canyon exit as the teachers urged them to hold on. Just as it seemed they might break through, the huge wandering lord stepped in. It let out a mighty roar, a skill called Battle Cry Rally. In response, the regular crystal monsters from all over the dungeon, which had been inactive before, suddenly started moving and began marching towards the basin. They poured into the canyon, their huge numbers forming what seemed like an endless wave of new enemies that completely surrounded the trapped rescue party. The students and teachers could only watch in despair as their escape route was cut off by thousands of new monsters, wondering where they had all come from. The already bad situation for the students and teachers got even worse. The huge wandering lord used a new ability called Crystal Aura. A massive red aura surrounded all the nearby monsters, strengthening them with a huge 20% increase to their health, attack power, and defense. The students on the front line were immediately beaten, crying out in shock at how much the monster's attack power had suddenly increased. The stronger group quickly got its first victim. A teacher was pierced by several energy beams, screaming that the damage was too high to be healed before he was completely beaten by the attacks and killed. A nearby student shouted in horror, announcing that a teacher was dead. As panic threatened to break them apart, Yunsha took control once more. She ordered the shield guards to the front to form a defensive line and told the priests to focus their healing on the shield bearers to keep them standing. Even with her strong commands, Yunsha knew their situation was very bad. She thought that everyone was already tired and they were now just barely holding on. Most terrifying of all, she realized that the Wandering Lord itself had not yet really started to fight, and they were already being pushed to their limit by its strengthened followers alone. Even with their best efforts, the combined forces of the students and teachers were no match for the strengthened, endless group of monsters. One of the teachers, his face serious, said that their efforts were useless and that they couldn't possibly break through at this rate. Seeing that a group defense was pointless, one of the more cowardly teachers decided to leave the group. He turned on a stealth skill, saying that it was every man for himself now. He tried to run, attempting to sneak past the monsters and escape on his own. The teacher, Lei Li, shouted after him, warning him that his stealth skill wouldn't last long enough for him to get away. His warning turned out to be tragically true. The running teacher was immediately spotted by a smaller, turtle-like crystal monster that came out of the ground, blocking his path. As the teacher froze in terror, the huge wandering lord, which had been watching the battle until now, finally made its move. It shot a devastating beam of pure energy that hit the ground where the lone teacher stood. The teacher was instantly destroyed, blasted directly into ashes by the overwhelming power of the lord's attack. The blast was so powerful that it not only killed the teacher, but also brought down the entire canyon, completely sealing the only escape route with a massive rock slide. The remaining students and teachers could only stare in horror at the unbelievable, terrifying display of power. One of them, his face a mask of despair, stuttered that they could no longer escape. Having sealed their only escape route, the huge wandering lord turned its attention to the trapped adventurers, its crystal eyes glowing as it charged another devastating energy beam. One of the students screamed in complete despair, believing it was over and that they were the next target. With no way to dodge the attack, the group prepared for the unavoidable, knowing they couldn't possibly block a blast that big. But at the last second, one of the students summoned a massive, fancy, giant shield that appeared in front of them. The shield, an epic quality, level 70 piece of equipment called the Rock Mountain Shield, had a huge amount of defense and resistance. The Lord's energy beam slammed into the giant shield with incredible force, pushing it back and threatening to break it. The teachers and stronger students rushed forward to hold the shield, knowing that if it fell, they would all be finished. Yunsha, her face strained with effort, explained their desperate plan. The shield was a level 70 piece of equipment, so its durability was sure to be high. However, because its level requirement was so high, no one in the group was actually strong enough to properly equip it and get its stat bonuses. This meant they had to physically hold the massive, hard-to-move object in place with their own strength. She knew this was only a temporary solution, a desperate move that could only buy them a little bit of time. As the students and teachers desperately held the line against the Wandering Lord's attack, their spirits began to break. One of the rescued seniors questioned why a monster of this power was even in the school's dungeon. Another student, his face a mask of terror and anger, turned on the teachers, blaming them for their situation and questioning why they had been brought there in the first place. One of the teachers, his face serious, wondered if their long struggle to save the trapped students had all been for nothing. The teacher, Lei Li, looked on with a pained expression, his only comfort being that at least the two younger students, Yunche and Xiao Zhi, were safe and wouldn't run into this danger. His thought was immediately proven wrong. To his complete shock, Xiao Zhi suddenly appeared at his side, pushing him out of the way of an incoming attack. Lei Li couldn't understand how the boy, who was supposed to be waiting by the valley, had gotten there so quickly. As another monster attacked, Lei Li shouted a warning. Xiao Zhi reacted instantly, shouting the name of his skill, "Surround Shield," to protect the teacher. However, the monster's attack was too powerful, shattering Xiao Zhi's defenses and breaking the group's perimeter. With their formation broken and their main tank hurt, the group was left completely open. There was no one left who could stop the advance of the Wanderer group. With their defensive line shattered, the group was left completely open, with no one left to stop the advance of the Wanderer monsters. In a desperate act of bravery, Xiao Zhi single-handedly charged the monsters, successfully blocking several powerful attacks and protecting the injured teacher, Lei Li. The teacher could only stare in amazement, wondering how the younger student he had dismissed as useless had such incredible strength. But Xiao Zhi's solo effort was not enough. The other shield guards' defenses were completely broken, and their entire defensive line was gone. Xiao Zhi himself was finally beaten, his armor breaking as he was sent flying by a powerful blow. He lay on the ground, bleeding and defeated, as the monsters prepared to deliver the final blow. Seeing their last line of defense fall, one of the teachers, his face a mask of sweat and terror, said that their situation was now truly hopeless. Just as the monsters were about to overrun the defenseless group, a blur of motion cut through the chaos. To the amazement of the teacher, Yunche appeared, standing on top of the body of a defeated monster. He held his massive, glowing crystal longsword, his eyes showing a cold, deadly calm. He looked down at his beaten and bleeding friend, Xiao Zhi, and praised him for his bravery. He then turned his attention to the monster group, his voice filled with strong confidence, and said, "Leave the rest to me." A short time ago, back in the mirror world, Yunche stood before the crystal core. He realized that since he had found the replica, the original, real-world version must still exist, This meant that with his mirror world ability, he could effectively double his harvest of any valuable resource. However, he knew there were limits. He had gathered 75 pieces of the valuable crystal ore, but bringing them all out would require 750 minutes of mirror walk time, far more than he had. He understood that like the crystal core, each piece of ore cost 10 minutes of his time to bring out. Faced with this limit, he made a choice. He would loot the real-world crystal core, but for now, he would use the replica he found in the mirror world to get its powerful buffs right away. A system notification confirmed that he had used both the real and mirrored versions of the core, which doubled the stat increases and gave him a powerful 40% immunity to light and electric type damage. After using the core, as he stood on top of the massive crystal formation in the real world, he suddenly felt a powerful vibration shake the whole cave. His eyes widened in alarm as he sensed the new disturbance. Wondering what had happened, he jumped into action, diving off the crystal formation to find the source of the noise. As he leaped from the crystal formation, Yun-che decided to test his new ability to exit the mirror world whenever he wanted. He phased through the crystal walls, entering the parallel dimension once more, and noted that he still had almost 13 minutes of his mirror walk time left. With a confident smirk, he confirmed another key part of his power. As long as he had time left on his mirror walk, he could enter and exit the dimension at any time. The ability would only go on cooldown once the entire time was used up. He immediately tested this, phasing back through the crystal walls and successfully returning to reality. When he returned, however, he saw a shocking sight. The number of monsters had grown hugely, far more than the crystal ore alone could explain. Towering over them all was the giant Wandering Lord, and Yun-che finally understood that this creature was the true source of the dangerous feeling he had felt from the very beginning. Realizing the huge danger, his first thought was for his friend. He knew that Xiaoji and the others were in great danger, but with his new control over the mirror world, a new plan began to form in his mind. Knowing he could now enter and exit the dimension at any time, he saw a chance to turn the tables on the seemingly unbeatable boss. With his new control over his ultimate skill, Yun-che came up with a new strategy. He began to phase in and out of the mirror world, using the other dimension to instantly move around, easily dodging the monster's attacks before reappearing in the real world to strike. This hit-and-run tactic was very effective. After taking down several more of the elite monsters, he reached level 24. He took a moment to check his new power, calculating that with his increased mana and the doubled mana recovery from the crystal cores, he could now stack his Blade of Trickery skill to get a huge 330% increase in his attack power. However, Yuncha stayed realistic. He knew that while his current power was crazy, it was still not enough to face the giant Wandering Lord, a creature even stronger than a normal dungeon boss. He decided that he would need to reach at least level 30 to have a real chance of winning, and he knew he was still a long way from his goal. The story then returns to the desperate moment in the real world, with the students and teachers about to be killed. Just as all hope seems lost, Yun-che exits the mirror world for the final time and appears in the middle of the battlefield. Standing on the body of a defeated monster, he looks at his beaten but brave friend, Xiaoji, and praises him for his courage. With strong will, he tells his friend to leave the rest to him, ready to face the huge group of monsters alone. Exiting the mirror world for the last time, Yun-che landed firmly on the ground, ready to fight. He immediately took charge, telling those with support skills to buff him while he took on the Wanderer Horde. Yunsha and Xiaoji reacted right away. The powerful high-level student used her Starlight Mystic art, while Xiaoji cast his defensive Surround Shield and Shield Armor, both skills buffing Yun-che with a big boost to his spirit and attack power. Now stronger, Yun-che became a storm of destruction, his massive crystal longsword cutting through the groups of elite monsters with ease. He knew that while the number of enemies was ridiculous, he was no longer in any real danger. After using the 2 crystal core secret treasures, his health was several times higher than before, and his 40% damage reduction against the monster's light and electric attacks made him very tough. His only frustration was that the monsters were immune to the confusion effect from his Chaotic Thorn skill, which would have made killing them much faster. The other students and teachers could only watch in shocked silence. The teacher, Lei Li, and the other seniors who had previously looked down on him were in complete disbelief. They checked his status bar and confirmed he was a support class chanter, but they couldn't understand how his attack power was so high, or what strange skill let him seem to teleport around the battlefield by phasing through the mirror world. Lei Li, his arm bleeding from an earlier injury, looked on with a mix of shock and awe. He couldn't believe that the younger student he had been so worried about was actually this strong. With his new power and toughness, Yunche became an unstoppable force, tearing through the endless group of elite wanderer monsters. The sheer number of high-quality enemies gave an incredible amount of experience, and he found himself leveling up at an amazingly fast rate. Yunsha, who had earlier identified him as the intruder at the Ding residence, could only watch in amazement. She had first thought he was just a bold thief, but now she had to admit that his strength was far beyond anything she could have imagined. Yunyin was just as stunned, left speechless by the incredible display of power from the boy who shared her last name. Yuncha continued his non-stop attack, phasing in and out of the mirror world to move and strike, his movements a blur of purple energy. He gained level after level, one after another, quickly reaching level 28. The other students and teachers, who had been about to die just moments before, were completely shocked. One of the teachers, Lei Li, wondered if Yunche was some kind of high-level support from outside, but then remembered seeing him before and realized he was a student. His companion, Little Z, was even more shocked, unable to believe that a mere student could have such huge power. Despite Yunche's incredible performance, the Wandering Lord was still a massive threat. As the giant beast got ready to shoot another of its devastating energy beams, the students and teachers cried out in alarm. Yunche, his face serious, knew that even with all his recent power-ups, he would not be able to survive a direct hit from that attack. As the Wandering Lord began to move forward, its energy beam still blazing, the students and teachers behind their makeshift shield wall knew their time was running out. Once the giant beast got close, the two shields would not be enough to protect them. The teacher, Lei Li, seeing that Yunche had greatly reduced the number of smaller monsters, shouted for everyone to break out and head for the other exit. He knew that no matter how strong the mysterious student was, there was no way he could fight the Wandering Lord alone. However, his plan was immediately met with pushback. One of the other students pointed out the problem. The two massive shields were too hard to move. If they left them to make a run for it, they would be completely open to the Lord's devastating attacks. Another student added that the shields were too heavy to be carried and could only be moved by storing them in an inventory, which none of them could do. Just as their argument got heated, a calm voice cut through the chaos, telling them to leave it to him. It was Yunche. He laid out a new, selfless plan. He would attack the Wandering Lord to get its attention, giving the rest of them a chance to retreat. The teacher, Lei Li, was stunned by his sacrifice, asking what would happen to him if they all ran. Yunche explained his thinking. He knew from his past life that if a Wandering Lord isn't dealt with, it will eventually gather all the monsters in the dungeon and wander into the outside world, causing a major disaster. With a look of serious determination, he declared that he would stay behind and kill the beast himself. He activated his Blade of Trickery, boosting his attack power by a huge 350%, and noted that he still had over 5 minutes left on his mirror walk, giving him the perfect tool to take on the giant enemy. As Yunche got ready to face the Wandering Lord alone, the teacher, Lei Li, made the hard choice to lead the others in a retreat. He told them to get out faster, thinking that no matter how strong Yunche was, he would eventually get tired against such a huge enemy. He figured that the sooner they escaped, the sooner Yunche could escape too. When a student questioned Yunche's bold claim that he could kill the Lord, Lei Li said it was just a brave act to make them feel better, because he knew how powerful a real Wandering Lord was. As he was forced to run with the group, Chaozhi felt completely useless. He looked back with a sad face, hating that all he could do at a time like this was run while his friend faced incredible danger. Silently, he prayed for Yunche's safety. Meanwhile, Yunche was not helpless at all. He kept fighting through the smaller monsters, getting stronger with every kill, and he quickly gained another level. As the huge Wandering Lord shot its powerful energy beam, Yunche used his mirror walk to phase out of reality. The beam passed right through the space where he had just been. He then reappeared behind the beast and hit it with a powerful slash from his glowing sword. However, his attack showed a hard truth. The Wandering Lord, a level 42 stone golem, had such a strong defense and a powerful healing skill that the small amount of damage he did was healed right away. He realized that at his current level, it was no use. Its defense was just too high. As he dodged the Wandering Lord's attacks, Yunche's first tests confirmed what he thought. He saw a large crystal on the creature's head was its core, which meant it was also its weak point. The only problem was getting to it. Even with his many buffs, his attack power was still not enough to break through the Lord's strong defense and healing. To make things worse, his time was running out. A quick look at his status showed that the powerful buffs he had gotten from the others were starting to wear off. His own mana was also very low, and he knew he wouldn't be able to use his powerful Blade of Trickery skill for much longer. He realized he had only one good option. He needed to get stronger. He needed to level up first by killing the weaker monsters. Just as he was about to start attacking the smaller monsters again, a bright beam of light shot out from a nearby crack in the rock. Yunche's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized the light. At that exact moment, the huge Wandering Lord also saw the light and, with a scary show of intelligence, shot its powerful energy beam at the crack. Yunche immediately phased into the mirror world to avoid the blast, but as he reappeared, he was shocked to see the beam was aimed at the exact spot where he would show up. He realized with a jolt that the smart boss had already learned his pattern and was guessing his moves. Forced to reappear in the real world in the middle of the Wandering Lord's huge energy beam, Yunche was caught in the blast. The attack was a big, continuous one that quickly took away his health, even with his powerful defenses. He knew he couldn't use his mirror walk to dodge, as he had less than 4 minutes of it left, and the continuous attack would use it all up in no time. His only choice was to use his undead army to block the damage. However, he knew this was a costly plan. Bringing his summons back to life would use a lot of his already low mana, leaving him with nothing left to build up his attack power for a counterattack. He began to wonder if he should retreat and regroup first. Just as he was about to be beaten, another powerful blast hit the Lord's attack. To his surprise, he saw that Yunsha, Yunyin, and even Xiaoji had come back to the fight. Yunsha explained with a playful smile that this little brother of his, meaning Xiaoji, had begged and pleaded for them to come back and help him. Xiaoji, with his back turned, quickly said that he hadn't begged. He explained that since the number of smaller monsters had gone down, the rest of the group now had enough people to escape on their own, which meant he was free to come back and help. Hearing his friend's brave decision, a real, thankful smile appeared on Yunche's face as he simply said, "Thanks." With their group now stronger, Yunsha took a commanding position. She told Yunche that the hidden boss was still too dangerous and that she and the others would cover him so he could make a slow retreat. However, Yunche completely refused her offer. He said that with their help, there was no longer any need for him to hold back, and he used the full power he had. With the help of his powerful allies, he kept farming the smaller monsters, and his mirror walk time finally ran out as he reached the key level of 30. Now at his target level, he knew his attack power was finally enough to take on the Lord. He immediately put on the rare, level 30, Corrupted Knight's armor he had gotten from the Ding family's dungeon, which greatly increased his defenses. Yunsha watched him, asking if he was really thinking of attacking the Lord's weak point on its head. She pointed out that at that height, it was impossible to get up there. But Yunche was one step ahead. He revealed that he had already gotten the tool he had always wanted, the Gravitational Pull skill book, which he had looted from one of the Wanderer monsters. The skill let its user pull a target object towards them. More importantly, its reversed form, gravitational traction, did the opposite, pulling the user towards the target, with the pull getting stronger the lower the user's strength. With this new movement ability, the Lord's weak point was no longer out of reach. He activated his Blade of Trickery, quickly building up his attack power, and with a confident smile, he promised the others that everything was under control. With his plan set and his power fully built up, Yunche reached out a hand covered in purple energy, aiming for the huge Wandering Lord's head. He then used his new skill, Gravitational Traction, and a powerful force grabbed him, pulling him forward with incredible speed. He shot through the air like a rocket, breaking the rocky ground as he flew right towards the giant monster. In an amazing show of skill and power, he landed perfectly on the Wandering Lord's head, putting himself right next to its glowing crystal core, his powerful sword crackling with energy and ready to strike. Down below, Yunsha and Yunyin, who had just said it was impossible to reach that height, could only stare upwards, their faces frozen in looks of absolute shock and disbelief at the impossible thing he had just done. Having reached the Wandering Lord's weak point, Yunche used all of his power. He drove his massively buffed sword deep into the glowing crystal core, causing a spiderweb of cracks to spread across its surface. The huge beast, however, would not go down without a fight. As it was dying, it let out a final massive explosion of pure energy from its core, a last-ditch effort to take its attacker down with it. Yunche was caught in the center of the blast, his health dropping quickly as a flood of messages confirmed the massive, continuous damage he was taking. But his new defenses and increased health held strong. He gritted his teeth and survived the attack, and when the light finally faded, he was left standing, beaten but alive, while the Wandering Lord's massive crystal body broke into a million pieces. A series of messages confirmed his incredible victory. He had defeated the Wandering Lord, earning a massive bonus of 5,000 experience points and the respected title of Wanderer Killer. More importantly, the hidden boss had dropped 2 legendary quality skill books, Golden Light Shield and Angel's Protection, rewards of immense power and value.